Well, good morning, Wichita, and good morning to all of you. Welcome to City Hall. I will now call this meeting to order. With us this morning is Pastor Jeff Gannon of Chapel Hill United Methodist Church to provide our invocation. Following that invocation, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance and invite for both contents to be stood up by all.
Let us pray. O God of us all, we give you thanks and praise for the gift of this new day, the gift of life, the privilege to serve you and each other. Today, as the proclamations are made, we celebrate and we rejoice in Religious Freedom Day. We pray your blessing upon the Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland Council as they celebrate their 100th anniversary. We especially pray for Rolinda Sample, the CEO. Bless her and all the girls that they serve. And we pray for those who are serving, those who are in need of help because of human trafficking. Bless each of us to do our part to help those that are in bondage. We are mindful today, O God, of all the people and communities in California. We pray that you would have mercy on all who suffer. Bless and empower all of those who are there to help. The firefighters, police, EMS, social service agents, good neighbors, clergy. We pray that you would bless all who help. We pray for a swift end to the fires so that the healing can begin. We pray today for these elected officials. We ask that you grant them wisdom, discernment, and prudence as they make decisions that impact our community. Guide their hearts, minds, and spirits, O God, to prioritize the needs of all, to seek justice for all, and to lead with compassion and integrity. We pray that their deliberations would be guided by your will, and may they always act with the best interests of our great city in mind. We pray for unity among them, that they may work together in collaboration and compromise to achieve the common good. We ask that you bless them with strength and courage to fulfill their responsibilities faithfully. For we entrust our lives and our community to you. Amen and amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Gannon. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Approve the minutes of the regular meeting, January 7th, 2025.
Council members, any changes or corrections? I see none. I move to approve the regular meeting minutes for January 7th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 6-0 with one abstention. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Selection of the Vice Mayor and oath of office.
Council members, you have a ballot in front of you. Please submit your ballots, and I will read them as they come forward to me. All right, I will read ballot from Maggie Ballard, a ballot for J.V. Johnston. Ballot from Brandon Johnson for J.V. Johnston. Ballot from Becky Tuttle for J.V. Johnston. Ballot from Dalton Glasscock for J.V. Johnston. Ballot from J.V. Johnston for J.V. Johnston. ballot from Mike Hoheisel for J.B. Johnston, and ballot from Lily Wu for J.B. Johnston. This would be a 7-0. I move to approve motion to approve Vice Mayor J.B. Johnston as our next Vice Mayor for the City Council. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none.
I can't push my screen. I'd like to make a comment. If I could.
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to thank Vice Mayor Ballard for a few more minutes being Vice Mayor, for your service this year. I know you've done an exceptional job. You've represented the city well while you continue to represent your district. So thank you for your extra time and effort. And then to Council Member Johnston, good luck. I know you'll do well. This is a very important role, and I'm awfully glad that you're going to be able to fulfill it this year. So wish you luck, and if you need any help or support, just let me know. Thank you.
I'd like to echo Councilmember Tuttle's comments. Maggie, I don't know how you fit all the duties into your already busy schedule, but you did it. Welcome to the former Vice Mayor's Club. I think now that you're in it, we will come up with official jackets, get ourselves fitted and whatnot. But congratulations on the year that you served. You did a great job. And I expect Vice Mayor, soon to be Vice Mayor Johnston, that I'll be saying the same thing about you in a year. So. Good luck, sir.
Members, I would just like to echo the same message from two council members who have both served as vice mayors for the council. Now we have a former vice mayor, soon to be former vice mayor. Thank you very much, Maggie, for always being supportive when the mayor cannot be in attendance at an event. You've taken on the role of speaking on behalf of the city of Wichita. You've also spearheaded a lot of different initiatives that you care a lot about for this community. And I'm just very appreciative that you continue to lead District 6 and look forward to your continued leadership. As for soon-to-be Vice Mayor J.B. Johnston, I look forward to having you sitting next to me right here, seconding a lot of the motions from this bench. And I also will appreciate you being able to represent the city of Wichita at official functions whenever I cannot attend. So thank you very much, JB. At this time, I would like to ask current Vice Mayor Maggie Ballard to come forward as we have a gift for her.
Sorry, I didn't really prepare a speech. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to represent the city as vice mayor this past year. I've gotten a lot of different and new opportunities that I wouldn't have normally had just in District 6. So I learned a lot, met a lot of new people, and I'm looking forward to the next year. Thank you.
In our presence is Judge Jones, who will help administer the oath of office for the new Vice Mayor. I will ask that new Vice Mayor J.B. Johnston come forward.
Mayor, we haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry. We have to vote officially now that the count is open. We're missing two more. Motion passes 7-0. Officially, Councilmember J.B. Johnston will be the new Vice Mayor for 2025.
Morning. Raise your right hand and repeat repeat after me. I state your name.
I, J.V. Johnston,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties of the Vice Mayor
and faithfully discharge the duties of the Vice Mayor
for the City of Wichita, Kansas.
of the City of Wichita, Kansas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate these honors and the support of the council. I think the council, we all have the same goals. We have different roads to getting there, but we all have the same goals, and we all get along, and I continue to work together, and hopefully can help foster that even further. So I just want to tell one story with you. Yesterday, I was talking to a young lady at Guadalupe Clinic, and she moved here from Florida 4 years ago during COVID. I said, why would you move from Florida to Kansas during COVID? COVID locked down, she was in school, she wanted to change. She got here not expecting to stay. After 4 years, she had decided to stay in Kansas and make Wichita her home. So I think that tells a lot about our city and our people in our city. And I asked her why. She said she liked the pace of life and she loved the people. That's an asset that we have that other communities may or may not have, but we do have it. And we value that, and I think Wichitans are appreciating that more and more, and I think if we spread that word, our great city will be even greater. So thank you again for the honor, and look forward to next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Johnston. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Awards and proclamations. Today's proclamations are Religious Freedom Day, Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland Council 100th Anniversary, and Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
May I please ask the representatives of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to come forward at this time. The proclamation reads, the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870, whereas National Religious Freedom Day celebrates the fundamental right of religious freedom for all citizens, and whereas religion has its greatest impact not at the national level, but at the local level, where people of faith live by their convictions and serve and bless others on a one-on-one basis, fostering a sense of community and mutual support. Whereas religion benefits our community by providing a moral compass, fostering love, and offering strength during loss. For decades, religious institutions and people of faith have played a crucial role in our city through charitable activities, aiding the needy, comforting those in loss, and encouraging us to high standards of integrity. Whereas we all benefit from a pluralistic society where residents of all beliefs work together for the common good while holding divergent viewpoints, and where all citizens are free to exercise such influence as their ideas and values may engender. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lily Wu, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim January 16th, 2025 as Religious Freedom Day in the City of Wichita, and encourage all residents to strive to understand the experiences and concerns of others while supporting the essential role religion plays in protecting human dignity, strengthening society, and fostering a culture of tolerance and peace.
I'd like to express gratitude to the City Council and to the Mayor for having this proclamation read. We're grateful for the faith and religious beliefs and creeds, especially in this community, and how they pull together. We're grateful for representation here at the City Council this day of various faiths and creeds. We're appreciative of everybody pulling together in this community. We are grateful for the faith that is displayed here in helping people and to bringing people together. Again, we express our gratitude to the City Council and to the Mayor for reading this proclamation and for this being done. Thank you.
May I please ask the representatives of Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland to please come forward at this time. Good to see you. The proclamation reads, "The City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870, whereas this year marks 100th anniversary of the formation of the Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland Council, which began in 1925, when Girl Scouts of the USA awarded the first council chapter right here in Wichita, Kansas. Whereas throughout its long and distinguished history, Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland, in conjunction with the Legacy Councils, has inspired thousands of Kansas girls and women to strive for the highest ideals of courage, confidence, and character. Whereas Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland is committed to offering membership and quality programs on a year-round basis to girls of all racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, and social-economic groups. Whereas in its second century of service, Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland is continuing a legacy of providing girls with the tools to become leaders dedicated to making the world a better place. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lily Wu, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim January 31st, 2025 as Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland 100th Anniversary Day in the City of Wichita, and encourage all citizens to celebrate the achievements of Kansas Girl Scouts who are leading in our communities."
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. It is so wonderful to celebrate all of our girls because our girls grow up to be leaders in our communities, just like Wichita. And we are very proud to be able to support and encourage those girls as they build their courage, confidence, and character. Thank you.
Well, I'm vice mayor for 1 minute. I already made a mistake. I memorized my speech and I forgot the most important part, and that's my wife, Veronica. So I had this wonderful speech about her and almost 43 years of marriage and been together for 46 years. And she's followed me through thick and thin, through adventures, crazy adventures she'll tell you about. Some of them worked out, some of them haven't. We've had successes and we've been on paper broke twice and we've made it through it. So I do appreciate you so much, love you so much, and thank you for everything you do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And he talks about you all the time in council, so just to let you know, you're always on his mind.
May we ask Mrs. Johnston to come forward to take a quick picture? I think that we did not get that earlier. May I please ask the representatives of Human Trafficking Awareness to come forward at this time? The proclamation reads, the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870, whereas each year human trafficking deprives thousands of men, women, and children of their freedom, dignity, and human rights. Whereas aggravated human trafficking is the recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, or obtaining by any means a person under the age of 18, knowing that the person with or without force, fraud, threat, or coercion will be used to engage in forced labor, involuntary servitude, or sexual gratification of the defendant of another, as defined in KSA 21-5426. Whereas victims of human trafficking are lured, forced, or coerced for the purpose of commercial sex, debt, bondage, or forced labor. Whereas Wichita is fortunate to have a dedicated multidisciplinary response to human trafficking, which incorporates prevention, intervention, and restoration through the partnership of nonprofit, medical, law enforcement, and social service agencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lily Wu, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2025 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in the City of Wichita, and encourage the residents of our community to strongly commit to combating human trafficking together.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. Congratulations, Vice Mayor Johnston and Mrs. Johnston. First of all, thank you for continuing to serve on the council and in city staff. We look forward to partnering together to continue to see our city grow and improve. My name is Jennifer White, and I'm the Executive Director of ICTSOS, an anti-human trafficking nonprofit proudly serving our city since 2011. As you're aware, January is Human Trafficking Prevention and Awareness Month. With me today are members of our community who work diligently every day to create a safer Wichita for all who live here. In their various roles, they also serve the needs of survivors. Wichita is fortunate to have a multidisciplinary team of organizations dedicated to the prevention, intervention, and restoration of survivors of trafficking, abuse, and exploitation. This team consists of local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, medical partners from clinics and hospitals, social workers, therapists, and advocates from child and adult serving agencies, board members, volunteers, and donors from every walk of life, and amazing organizations like the Girl Scouts in our community. I speak on behalf of the group to extend our gratitude to the City Council for recognizing Human Trafficking Prevention and Awareness Month, and I implore you to connect with these organizations to learn more about how they are serving, where the gaps are, and how we can come together as a city to see an end to the exploitation of our neighbors. ICTSOS is excited to announce the opening of Our Place, our new expanded location. Through a partnership with the Rotarians Against Human Trafficking Committee, Our Place quickly moved from a dream to a reality. ICTSOS moved into the new building at 126 South Ida earlier this month and will host a symbolic groundbreaking event on January 30th. We would welcome your attendance at this celebration as we cast the vision for what Our Place will become over the next several years. Thank you for the work you're doing. Our city is making great strides to become a safer, healthier city for all who live here. Thank you to my colleagues. And this is where I lose it every time. I'm so proud of these people. Thank you to my colleagues, both here with us today and those who weren't able to join us because this work never takes a break. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to City Staffer Norma Ramos for handling the administrative duties to get the proclamation on today's agenda. The real heroes are often behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you again to the representatives of Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, Girl Scouts of Kansas, and the representatives from Human Trafficking Awareness, including ICT SOS. Council Member Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, I just wanted to make sure we say thank you to you too. I know how hard you work and you're very much appreciated. Next time, there's always next time. Have a good day.
Vice Mayor Johnston.
Also, Jennifer, before you leave, I also want to thank you too. So I've known you probably for a decade, and there's no one with greater passion for your mission than you. So thanks for your leadership.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Public agenda. As a reminder, the public agenda allows for up to 5 speakers to have 5 minutes each to address the council. No action will be taken relative to items on the public agenda other than the referral to the city manager for information as necessary. Speakers will please state their name and address for the record. A time clock will display the speaker's remaining time to speak. Order and rules of decorum will be observed. The first speaker is Chief E.S. Lewis, Community Outreach Center for the Tribe of Judah.
Peace be with you. I am Chief E.S. Lewis of the Holy Kingdom of Judah. It is an honor and a privilege to stand before this council yet again. The Holy Kingdom of Judah would like to extend gratitude to Mayor Lily Wu, Councilman Johnson, the Wichita City Council, the city manager, the legal department, the Wichita Police Department, and the great people of the city of Wichita for the cooperation, civility, respect, and support which has been extended to our tribe during our time of renewal and restoration. Our tribe also extends a warm gratitude to Councilman Hoheisel for moving on our behalf during the last council meeting we attended. Councilman Hoheisel, thank you. The city of Wichita is fortunate to have a body of representatives who have a deep and genuine commitment to the peace and security of its citizens. Gratitude. In a world marred by conflict, inequalities, and injustices, we as global citizens must strive with unending perseverance to promote peace, love, and prosperity for all. Peace is a pinnacle treasure which all humanity has an inheritance to enjoy. The path to global peace begins in our local communities. Cultivating a culture of peace means replacing lies, misconceptions, division and despair with truth, equity, unity, and hope for all. An environment of peace can only be built upon a foundation of truth. Before a culture of lasting peace and contentment can encompass the earth, the wrongs which have been committed against the tribe of Judah must first be rectified. We as humanity have passed through great trials and tribulations since the time of the triangular trade. These trials and tribulations have caused us to become more socially conscious and spiritually aware. With greater social consciousness comes greater social responsibility. Many problems found in our modern society stem from Judahites suffering from a cultural identity crisis. The Holy Kingdom of Judah social researchers have identified the crisis as tribal orphan syndrome. Research evidence suggests that orphans who have experienced trauma and the loss of parents may be more likely to exhibit behavioral issues. Trauma due to emotional distress, unstable caregiving, and lack of family identity can manifest in orphans as negative behaviors. Similarly, tribespeople who have suffered the trauma having their tribal identity, culture, and heritage stripped from them adapt negative cultures, identities, and behaviors not their own. The Holy Kingdom of Judah Tribal Community Center will help curtail negative behaviors within our communities by reintegrating tribespeople into the knowledge, understanding, and expectations of their innate tribal identity and cultural heritage. Now is the time to restore Judah and remove the thorn and injustice from the heel of humanity so that we may peacefully walk into a future of equitable coexistence. To obtain the prize of peace, it is paramount that each individual contributes and dedicates their contributions towards the creation of a peaceful future for all humanity. Many citizens of the city of Wichita have awakened to their greater social responsibility and have made a contribution towards peace by signing a petition requesting the expedited inauguration of the Holy Kingdom of Judah Tribal Community Center. In fewer than 30 days, the petition surpassed 500 signatures. Comments from District 1 and the greater Wichita community include, "We need this center." Finally, yes, it is time for peace. We got to have this. The Holy Kingdom of Judah Tribal Council of Chiefs respectfully submits this petition to expedite the facilitation of the Holy Kingdom of Judah Tribal Community Center. Thank you. Peace be unto all.
Thank you, Chief Lewis. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next individual?
Mary Dean, history.
Good morning, all. I've been here before, many times. I've handed out information about the ordinance and reparations in Wichita. You know who I am. I'm President Mary Dean of Kansas Justice Advocate, Inc. I've sent emails and letters and everything else talking about the historical content of the history of reparations when it comes to Wichita. The case for reparations when it comes to Wichita, blacks in Wichita, Kansas. The local impact of the historical injustice that have impacted black people in Wichita, Kansas. You've heard this before. As the leader of this city, because I'm not gonna go through all of this, I got some questions myself. As leader of this city, Mayor Wu, it is your responsibility to address these issues head on and work towards meaningful change by establishing a commission to study reparations in Wichita for black residents. In conclusion, the pursuit of reparations is not just about righting the wrongs of the past. It is about building a future where justice and equity are at the forefront of our community. I stand before you today, not only as the president of Kansas Justice Advocate, Inc., but as a representative of all of those who have been affected by systemic racism. Systemic racism. Today, we can make a difference and pave the way for a brighter and more inclusive future. I have some information that I'd like to pass out to everyone, but I have a question. For you, Mayor Wu, for you, City Councilwomen and men, for you, City Manager Robert Layton, and for the Attorney Jennifer McNair. Mayor Wu, have you made an attempt to reach out to those mayors in Evanston, Illinois, Kansas City, Missouri, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, who have established commissions to study reparations for their black citizens? I want this on the record. I need answers. City councilmen, women and men, have you all made an attempt to reach out to any of the city representatives in Kansas City, Missouri, or Oklahoma, or Evanston, Illinois, to see how they set up their commissions to study reparations for blacks? Have any of you made an attempt to do that? You've been asked that before in emails. You promised that you would reach out. Have you reached out? I like an answer. Have you reached out? City Manager Robert Layton, what happened to the meeting that you had to discuss the ordinance that was submitted to this mayor and the city council? What happened? Jennifer, City Attorney Jennifer, what happened to the ordinance that went to your office that was going to be reviewed for 30 to 60 days? I haven't heard anything from anybody about this, about what has been or has not been done when it came to the ordinance that was submitted February the 5th, 2024, and resubmitted because it was revised last year, October, hand-delivered to the mayor's office. Nothing. Why is everybody silent now? Why can't I get any answers? Why can't the citizens of this city get any answers about the ordinance that was submitted to study reparations? Study in this city for black residents. You're talking about unity, peace, healing? Who's healing? Can I get some answers? I'd like to have it in writing.
Thank you, Mary, for your 5 minutes. Council Member Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Mary, appreciate you coming here. As I indicated to you previously, I actually did speak with the young lady who created the ordinance in Evansville prior to them even doing that, and how they were working that through. I think I indicated that to you before. Also, as a part of NLC, I've talked to 3 or 4 members of the Kansas City Council about this. So yes, I've talked to them. Outside of that, I am still supportive of this and wanted to know if you were supportive of going through the process we had originally came up with. I have an email that shows that the last time there was a communication with you about this was September 11th to go to DICRAB. If you are still interested in that, I know DICRAB would love to have you there to start talking through the creation of a commission.
Let me ask this question. If that is the process, I mean, why hasn't the ordinance been put to the floor for discussion, for an up and down vote?
Because they wanted you to come present on your thoughts on not only the ordinance, maybe some suggestions of what it could look like, and they wanted some real input from you. And the presentation that you wanted to give the council, they wanted to hear that as well so that they could start to begin to craft that type of ordinance.
Okay, because I did give a presentation to the Diversity and Inclusion and the Civil Rights Advisory Board.
Yeah, so again, I'm looking at an email right now that says that you were communicated with on September 11th. They would like you to come back. They wanted you to come back in October so that they could talk with you about that, have that presentation, and DICRAB then would start to look at working with legal to create that ordinance that you first submitted, because what you submitted was not in the language that we use here in Wichita. So they would start to work with that, probably have you back to look at the final version of or the final draft before it came to council. So if you're open to that, we
Yeah,
can get
is
you
that
back
the
to
revised?
DICRAB.
Are you talking about the revised ordinance that was
Both.
submitted?
So the first one that you sent was in the language, I believe that one came from Kansas City. It had a few things in there that we don't do in Wichita, so some of that would have to come out, and that would,
No, that didn't come from Kansas City.
wherever it came from,
Yeah,
it was not.
that didn't come from Kansas City. But that one was withdrawn,
Okay.
and I asked for it to be, I submitted a revised one.
So both were not in the language that we use and the way an ordinance looks here, so it would have to be worked through legal to put into the way an ordinance will look here in the city of Wichita. So if you're still open to that, we can get you back at DICRAB to go through that, the suggestions you have that conversation, what the committee could look like, how the appointments are made, because that was one of the things we talked to you about. And then we can go from there. They'll make a final recommendation to the council to vote on, ordinance-wise.
Okay. All right, let's try it again.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll be in contact with you.
All right, thank you. But I still
Councilmember
want some answers
Hoheisel.
from the other folks, okay? You gave me something, but I want some answers from everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I participated in some of the conversations in NLC as well with some of the Kansas City colleagues. And Councilmember Johnson did ask a few of the questions that I had as far as the first ordinance or the first piece of legislation going before DICRAB, and then you pulled that and put another one in. I've had conversations with my DICRAB representative over this issue too. So I do know that they are wanting to have this discussion as well. So same with Councilmember Johnson. That's what I've been waiting for is DICRAB to hear it and come with some suggestions as well. So just wanted to add that in as well.
So, contact with Dr.
You'll get an email from me, and I'm CCing Dante on it right now.
Madam Clerk, please call the next individual.
Gloria Bayer, questions for council members.
Good morning. I have several comments and questions for you all. Thank you all for being here. I'm in J.V. Johnston's district. I'm noticing more and more bike lanes around the city. It's kind of hard as a driver to give up the space from the driving lanes because our lanes seem to be becoming more and more narrow. I'm wondering how much the total cost to the taxpayer is going to be for this project as it proceeds around the city. Since my understanding is the city is in quite a bit of debt, is it really an important issue at this time? And if we're going to have these bike lanes, I'm concerned that the bikers are going to get hit. In fact, just the other day, I did see a car get way too close to a biker. And I'm talking about out on West 21st, between Mays Road and 135th, which is the area I live in. It just seems like there needs to be some additional preventive thoughts and measures taken place about how to prevent accidents from happening or penalties for getting too close before this project proceeds any further. And I did also notice the other day while driving that the snow was not off of the bike lanes, at least out in that area, which I don't know that bikers are going to be driving on those bike lanes, but that was just something I wanted to mention. I did want to thank the city, however, for the crews who clean off the roads because they've done just an incredible job. Once I get outside my neighborhood is not good, but I don't think the city manages that. They make the roads clear and easy for us to travel on, and so myself and many others can get to church and get groceries, which is so important to us. Their diligence and willingness to get out when the rest of us are home staying warm is amazing. Lastly, I just want to leave you, I'm a scripture person, and scriptures to me are of daily importance, and I just would like to challenge you to think about this as you govern this year. It's from Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Gloria. Vice Mayor Johnston.
Gloria, thank you for coming out on a cold, snowy day and getting on those roads and coming out to speak with us, so we appreciate that.
We had 3 speakers for public agenda, which means there are 2 spots left for anyone in the audience who would like to address this council to please come forward at this time. Please state your name, your address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Harlan Bascom. I live at 5514 South Santa Fe. That's in District 3. I'm coming today to talk a little bit about the budget. Growing up here in Wichita, raising a family, we of course had to budget to handle both our needs and our wants. Our needs were housing, medical care, feeding my children. Those are all things that we had to have. Then we had our wants, our extra activities, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, youth soccer. Those are all things that my kids were able to participate in and improve their quality of life, which is important. With the City Council, it's important that you consider our needs and our wants. Our needs are public safety, such as the police department, fire, code enforcement. Those are all things that provide for the safety of our citizens. Another need is our infrastructure, taking care of our streets, maintaining our public property, and just taking care of that infrastructure part. And water and sewer. I'm sorry, I wanted to mention that because we're doing a great job with the new water plant. And then another need for our community is our homeless population, which we've started a great project. You've got the shelter up, and you're going to be working to implement the activities for the multi-agency center. Those are our needs. Our wants are stuff like the museums, the parks and recreation programs, festivals, and our bike paths. Now, I do appreciate the bike paths. I used to occasionally ride some of the bike paths along the river to come to work every day. But is it really a need for the city? It's a want that needs to be addressed once all the needs are taken care of. And I would charge that the City Council look into that, look into spending our resources responsibly, and perhaps putting more emphasis on what our needs are. Thank you, and y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you, Harlan. Council Member Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Harlan, I appreciate your comments and I always appreciate having this discussion. When I think about wants and needs, I too grew up poor. And so when I think about those wonderful days on the 1st and 15th when my refrigerator was colorful, but in between it was bare. When I think about eating Vienna sausages and ramen noodles because I couldn't afford the things, or my mom couldn't afford the things everyone else did, or maybe some of the embarrassment of those paper food stamps that they used to have. She would do that at the store. I think about wants and needs. She really had to live within her means. But it was important that the city invested in parks and arts and things like that, because without that, I had nothing. I was not one of those kids that could go somewhere else and have fun or go to a movie. It was parks. It was the programs that the city offered that were either free or cheap. Those are the things that are needs for poor people, because without that, what do we have? And what type of life would I have had if I didn't have those things? I went to city summer camps. Some of that was covered by the benefits that we had. I was able to participate in those art programs. I really got a lot out of that. So were we in a position to maybe get that somewhere else, that type of enrichment? Not really. So when we talk wants and needs and public safety, arts, parks, libraries, all of that is also a need if we really care about providing those opportunities for our citizens. Now, if we take all of it away, to your point, yes, we're tightening our belt, we're taking it away, but then for those who don't have the means to go to something else that may be a little more costly, what about them?
Sure. And I agree with you. I grew up poor myself. My mother was on welfare, and we struggled as I grew up. And I'm not saying that these wants aren't important. Quality of life issues are important. They're important to the development of the city, of getting employers to locate here. And I understand all that. I just feel that there's a certain priority, and we need to take that into consideration. But I agree with you 100%. Those wants are important, and I'm not trying to discount those wants. I took advantage of many of the same programs that you did as you were growing up. I used to go swimming at the Linwood Park swimming pool down there at Mount Vernon and Hydraulic. So I'm not trying to discount the importance of some of these ones. I'm just wanting to make sure we do focus on the more important things before we bring up some of those others. Again, not to discount the importance for the people who don't have the resources necessary to do some of the things that others get to do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I also think right now some of the narrative in the community is a little, it's true, but also nuanced. So if we look at our deficit, it has to be annually. You know, we can combine everything and say there's $20+ million of debt, but I think next year is 3.6 million.
Sure.
I mean, so we have to legally have a balanced budget. And if we look at it annually, our staff does a wonderful job of finding ways to make adjustments to meet those needs. But when we talk about those higher numbers, I think of it like the Riverfront Plan. Everyone talked 1.3 billion, right? But really, every year there were phases. Those phases were not 1.3 billion. So when we talk about that high number, I think it gets people thinking, oh man, we need to start cutting. We can't do these things. But really, there's smaller numbers every year. And our staff is so talented, they always find a way to make that work. When I was elected, we had a $7 million deficit. And somehow we didn't have to make all the cuts people thought. We were still able to invest in communities. So yes, we need to prioritize and have those conversations, but it's not the huge number we're talking about, because that's broken up over years. It's really smaller numbers that we'll get to every year. But again, I appreciate this conversation.
Okay, well, thank you.
Council Member Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming up, Harlan. I always appreciate a fellow District 3 resident coming up and talking. We're going to keep these things in mind as we move forward. Of course, public safety comes first. What all public safety entails, that's going to be part of the discussion moving forward. So I appreciate you again coming up and letting us know your thoughts on this.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, we don't keep mayonnaise in the Hoheisel household anymore. Too many mayonnaise sandwiches over the years, so not a favorite of mine anymore, I'll say that.
Council Member Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor Harlan. Thank you for speaking. I just made a commitment over the course of the next year to be much more intentional about saying that it's not the city's budget, it's the taxpayers' budget. We have no money that isn't derived from our taxpayers. And so the city has a responsibility not to add to the burden of our citizens, but to ease the burden for our citizens. And so I'm thankful for the reminder. We do have a deficit projected in 2026, 27, and 28. We need to be mindful of that when we're making decisions from this bench. And so I'm thankful for you to remind us of that. And I believe in a high quality of life, but I also believe that we must maintain what we have before we build new. And there's a lot of things that we aren't maintaining well in the city, and let's maintain those before adding to that. So thank you for that reminder, and I hope you come up more often as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harlan. We have room for one more individual for up to 5 minutes to speak before the council. I see none.
Hey, good morning. Happy New Year, Twyla Purity. I live in Polo Club, District 1. I certainly wasn't planning to come up here. I don't have any notes, but the budget discussion prompted me to once again come up and talk about contracting and legal action against the city, perhaps related to contracts and employee issues, right? There's a lot of talk about budget, but it's the things we don't get to see that give me pause. How much do we spend in legal fees defending actions against the city? And I'm not talking just police. You know, police is a passion of mine, and policing black and brown people. But other suits against the city, whether it's vendors, employees, what's the cost of defending those? What are the payouts? I just don't know that there's that transparency to citizens on that topic. As a retired healthcare executive, contracting was a key component of my success over my career. And I've even just things that come up in the news, the contracting issue, not being enforced with the ice rink, the contract issue just with the veterinarian services, for animals. There's work, and when I read contracts done in the city, there's work to be done in those to tighten things up. With a good contract, you won't have these lawsuits. The whole purpose is to tighten things up so everybody is clear about what's going on. So I just want to encourage a deep dive into the contracting partly. I want to encourage that compliance to contracts. Every contract that the city has are the parties to the agreement in compliance with the agreement, right? I think we've seen some things that monies that could have been collected weren't because of a lack of compliance. And then the other thing, transparency in what it's costing us taxpayers to defend contractual disputes or lawsuits, and what it's costing then when there's payouts. Thanks for your time. If I can help, provide insight or discuss any of this further offline with any of you, I'm more than willing. Thank you.
Thank you, Twyla. I have a question for City Manager Layton. I would like to see costs for legal fees broken down by law firms over the last 3 years, 2024, 2023, 2022, as well as payouts for the last 3 years as well, and where each of those departments, where those payouts came from, which department they came from. And I would like that to be provided to the council, the 7 of us. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Consent agenda items 1 through 25.
Council members, are there items to be pulled? Council Member Johnson.
I knew it would happen one day. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item number 11.
Any additional items? I see none. Sorry. Council Member Ballard.
I'd like to pull item number 7 just for conversation.
Any additional items? I see none. I move to approve the consent agenda items without consent agenda item number 7 and number 11.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. We will go numerically and start with consent agenda item number 7.
I am supportive of it. I just wondered if you could speak to the application a little bit.
Mayor and council members, Gary Jansen, Public Works and Utilities. I might ask you to ask that question one more time. Did you say speak to the location or to the specific item?
No, yeah, to the item.
Sorry, I must have misheard that, and I thought you were talking about a location. That we continue to look for opportunities, especially those types of grants that require no local match like this one. Stood out, I think, is in support of what we've previously looked at with the NASA study and the heat islands across the community. This grant would provide some expertise, some collaboration with other experts across the country to further define that plan, eventually or potentially provide funding, especially for increasing our tree canopy. I think that's where our focus would really be at. So again, there's no match required for this grant. We think it would provide us the opportunity to continue looking in those areas where we can make a big difference for heat resiliency in different parts of the city.
And how much is the grant for?
The grant itself could be awarded $10,000.
Thank you so much, and for continuing to look for ways to reduce heat.
Gary, I do have follow-up questions then. This item says that this obviously does not have a match, but this, quote, could include actions such as tree planting, build shade for pedestrians, and public communication campaigns, which obviously will cost dollars. Can you amount how much each of those 3 items would be in the approximate?
I don't think at this point in time we could even make a guess at that, Mayor, until we got further along and understood what this plan might provide. What I will tell you is I think that we would look for the opportunity with the $10,000 for implementation. That's not going to get us very far. But I think what we have found with some of these other grants within the scope of the things we've talked about here, the partnerships we would create, there's probably additional opportunities then for funding outside of that. Anything that we would do as far as implementation or a plan, we would bring back to council. We would have to identify funding for any action that would be taken. Right now, I don't think we have any type of estimate until we find out what this plan is all about.
Thank you, Gary. I see no further questions for staff. We will now open it up for public comment regarding consent agenda item number 7, heat resilience cohort application. I see none. I'll bring it back to the bench.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take staff's recommended action and approve the application.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I just want to make sure that I'm on record saying, again, this is any future funding for these items would still need to come back to the council. So this is not a commitment to those items, but it's a commitment to accepting a $10,000 possible grant. I will motion in a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Consent agenda item number 11.
Thanks, Mayor. Due to a personal conflict of interest, I have to abstain from this item.
This is item number 11, Amendment to Home Program 2022 Chodo Set-Aside Allocation for Jacob's Ladder, Inc. I see no questions from the bench. We will open it up for public comment. I see none. I'll bring it back to the bench. I move to approve the contract amendment providing an extension of the date for project completion and authorize necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Board of Bids and Contracts dated January 13th, 2025.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Josh Lauber, Department of Finance. The Board of Bids and Contracts convened January 13th, 2025 for the following items. For engineering, we have the sanitary sewer improvements to serve Buffalo Pines Edition for Meese Construction Incorporated in the amount of $815,000. We have the water distribution system sanitary sewer improvements to serve Bridger at Central Edition for Noack Construction Company Incorporated for an aggregate bid total of $408,775. For purchasing, we have the portable toilets contract for Prairie Pots LLC in the amount of $16,085 for an estimated annual usage for 1 year with 4 one-year options to renew. We have the 3 58,000 gross vehicle weight restriction dump trucks for Omaha Truck Center Incorporated, doing business as Truck Center Companies for $583,581. We have the polymer for use in the wastewater solids dewatering facility, contract change order for Polydyne Incorporated, requesting authorization to extend the contract for 90 days. We have the polymer C9545 for use in the wastewater solids dewatering facility, contract change order, also for Polydyne Incorporated, requesting authorization to extend for 90 days. We have the Wichita Police Department uniform and uniform equipment accessories management program contract change order for Galls LLC for an amended estimated annual usage of $968,415.30. We have the Wichita Fire Department uniform and uniform equipment accessories management program contract change order for Galls LLC for an amended estimated annual usage of $74,702.36. We have the supply and install of audiovisual equipment at Carl Brewer Community Center for McClellan Incorporated for $125,000. We have the compact track skid steer for Clark Equipment Company for $75,218.94. We have the Housing Elite Software annual hosting and maintenance for Emphasis Computer Solutions for $179,887. We have the NeoGov Human Resource and Applicant Tracking System annual subscriptions renewal for governmentjobs.com Incorporated for $50,563.60. This is how to do business with the city. These are our purchasing calendar of small resource partner events that the city will be hosting or participating in. These are open public opportunities out on the street today. And I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you, Josh. We'll begin with Council Member Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you go back to slide 7 real fast?
Sure.
So is this the yearly cost for these?
Estimated annual usage. So
Estimated annual usage? And
Yes, sir.
so do we know what are we estimating in terms of number of usage?
We have an estimated itemized breakdown of quantity, but Reggie, can you help me out with that? What we did was this is a fixed fee for service contract, and based on the estimated quantities from our requesting department, that's where that $16,085 comes from.
And that amount is also factored into where we have porta potties in our parks and other locations that we use for programming throughout the year. So once we put the bid out, we use that from what we had in previous years to determine what that maximum amount could potentially be for the calendar year.
So is this usage of hundreds or is it usage of thousands?
It depends. Locations, say for instance, one of our parks may have programming that's there. Then certain portions of the year we may put 2 porta potties on site that's there for the the participants to use. So it's just varied by location, the number that we actually have.
So we're probably looking at around 100, right? So it's a cost per unit of $160 per unit.
The cost is actually at $150, if I'm not mistaken, per unit for uses on it. So it kind of gives you a number of what we're looking at throughout the year based on that.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, we have in the formal bid packet the actual itemization of the rates, and I can tell you specifically the quantities if you'd like. Okay.
Any further questions for staff? I do have one. Can you look at slide number 13? I just want to get an update on when Carl Brewer's Community Center will open up officially with all the improvements, and how much in total improvements did the community center receive? I think that it's a really great center, but I just want to know when the community can expect that to be finished.
Mayor, Council Members Gary Jansen, Public Works and Utilities. I think we're still tracking for late summer for the community center to be online. Current weather's not helping. We had a few issues right out of the chute, even dealing with some stormwater issues in the parking lot, but that really hasn't slowed down the facility, I don't think. Hopefully the weather straightens up here a little bit. Generally on projects like this, they're able to move forward with vertical construction, but I think we're still on track for late summer. I'll confirm if that's not the case.
Remind me all the improvements that are happening there.
So the best I can tell you is that we are constructing, expanding the facility, remodeling the existing. There's going to be a gym. That's one of the largest components of that. I'd have to probably get back to you on some of the details and refresh my memory. It's been a while since I've looked at the plans. Councilmember Johnson can probably provide as much as I can.
Yeah, so the current facility is a little under 13,000 square feet. It will be nearly 37,000 square feet when it's done. Current gym will remain, but revitalized new gym that can hold, I think, a little north of 300 people. Full culinary arts opportunity in a commercial kitchen, as well as meeting rooms, dining room. I believe there's another potential technology room. So there'll be a lot of opportunities in the space. The art is amazing. I've seen a lot more of it, but I haven't seen all of it. And of course, I think 190 new parking spots. I'm probably missing something else, but that's the gist of it. Definitely an upgrade. When it was 100 degrees outside in the old facility, it might be 105 inside the old one. So much needed upgrade. It's gonna look great.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. I see no further questions for staff. I'll bring it back here. I will move to approve the Board of Bids and contracts.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Ordinance creating Chapter 11.51 relating to operation of golf carts.
Good morning, Sharon DeGraff, City Law Department. For background for this item, currently the state statutes prohibit the operation of golf carts on any highways or roadways with a posted speed limit greater than 30 miles per hour. Golf carts are prohibited on city roadways unless the city has passed an ordinance which allows such operation. To date, the city has not passed any ordinances to allow the operation of golf carts. Several neighboring municipalities have enacted this type of legislation. Derby, Andover, Goddard, and I believe Valley Center have all passed this type of legislation. Staff was directed to look at legislation from other cities and develop proposed ordinances which would allow the operation of golf carts on certain roadways. The group consisted of representatives from WPD, Finance and Law, Public Works and Traffic Engineering, also provided input regarding the ordinances. The ordinance provides that golf carts will be allowed on certain city streets. They will not be allowed to be operated on highways, arterial streets, streets which have a posted speed limit of more than 30 miles per hour or in the core area. The core area is defined by the ordinance, essentially Murdoch on the north, Kellogg on the south, Hydraulic on the east, and Nims and Stackman Drive on the west. Golf carts cannot cross highways or arterial streets, given the current provisions. To be operated on the city streets, the golf cart has to have a slow-moving emblem. It has to have a registration emblem or decal from the city finance department. The application would include requirements that proof of insurance coverage be required. Golf carts cannot be operated on sidewalks, walking trails, bike paths. They can only be operated during the time that it's light, 30 minutes after sunrise and 30 minutes before sunset. Drivers must be at least 18 years of age, and the ordinances require the golf carts to essentially comply with all rules of the road and maintain the liability insurance. The proposed ordinances do not apply to the use of certain golf carts. Those would be at licensed community events, those owned or operated by governmental agencies, or golf carts that are solely left on the public courses or private courses. These ordinances also specifically do not apply to gators, ATVs, or micro trucks. So those types of motorized vehicles would continue to be prohibited on city streets. For everything but the emblem provisions, it is a traffic infraction with a fine not exceeding $500. It's recommended that the City Council review the proposed ordinance and take actions as it deems appropriate. If the council does determine to pass the ordinance, staff does recommend that it have an implementation date of April 1st to allow staff to get the necessary licensing forms and decals. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sharon. We'll begin with Council Member Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. Great picture choice. I also want to thank Council or Vice Mayor Johnston for proposing this. I like reducing the burden on individuals. So I'm in support of this. I do have a few questions regarding this as well. It seems that in every ordinance we have, the core area is defined differently. So this is different than the core area defined. So for example, this butts into Delano near Seneca Street. I don't see any reason for prohibiting it in Delano. What was the justification for that?
Going to have to defer to the police department, and I believe Captain Stevens is here, way in the back. I would agree that we do define central business district differently, core area differently, and I think it came down to safety concerns and traffic, but I will need to have Captain Stevens address that.
Yes, good morning. Captain Stevens, Wichita Police Department. I'm assigned to the Traffic Division. And that was my selection. I was asked to provide input on the ordinance and the contents thereof. And quite simply put, I considered traffic flow, downtown business district area where there are, again, traffic flow issues or considerations, buildings, visibility, and most of the speed limits within that core area, as I defined it, are 30 miles an hour. And many of the streets within that core area, as I defined it, also are arterial streets for the most part. So in short, that's the reason. I didn't really look at or take into consideration any other core area definitions as they apply to other ordinances.
Okay. Thank you. I have a few other questions. I don't know if this would be for you or for legal. You might be able to answer one. I noticed that you have to have a valid driver's license and 18. Most of the other communities, I looked at 16 other communities in the state, and it was just all 18, or it was all valid driver's license. It wasn't restricted to 18. What was the justification for that?
First and foremost, it's incredibly important to us from a public safety standpoint to have a valid driver's license to operate any motorized vehicle on our city streets. The 18 years of age is a recommendation based on some of the things that we, the police department, have seen already in illegal operation of golf carts where younger individuals in the community are driving them. And we've had, I can think of at least one incident where we had a serious injury involving youthful golf cart operators. So 18, from our standpoint, seemed like a good age to draw the line. Not to mention also, there are stipulations where we would like to be able to hold the owner, the parent of the golf cart accountable for violations that do occur involving drivers of that particular golf cart. And of course, 18 is where you become an adult. So children of golf cart operators would fall into that age range.
Okay, I have probably two more questions, probably maybe one more for you. Regarding artillery streets, state law allows for crossing of artilleries. All the communities, I didn't find one community in the state that prohibited crossing. For example, Shawnee, Valley Center, Sedgwick, Olathe, Andover, Halstead, Goddard, Lenexa. Why would we take a more prohibitive approach than the other cities in our state?
We, as mentioned before, we do have several surrounding communities in the county, Derby, Goddard, Mays, who allow golf cart operation. But the traffic flow and the dynamics of those communities are not the same of here in Wichita. We have much higher traffic volume within the city, and the consideration is protecting operators of golf carts if we are to allow them to lawfully operate on our city streets. Golf carts are not designed the same way as you know, several ton motor vehicles. So the fear is, or the hope is to avoid having that close interaction with golf cart operators and motor vehicles that are operating at speeds higher than 30 miles an hour on arterial streets. From a public safety standpoint, my concern would be any collision involving a true motor vehicle with a golf cart crossing an arterial street would end in a fatality.
Thank you. I think I have more questions for legal, but that's probably all for the safety aspect. Probably two more questions. Applicable that we're talking, our next item is about bicycling as well. Bicycles are allowed to cross artillery streets, correct?
Yes.
They're allowed in areas that are greater than 30 miles an hour, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll have more discussions about that in a minute. And then the last question I have, probably for legal, it had mentioned something about, oh gosh, I can't think of the language right now, I didn't highlight it, about other type of vehicles. Can you talk more about that as well?
Yes, the ordinance does not apply to ATVs, gators, micro trucks, micro utility trucks. Those would still be excluded from the city streets.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all the questions I have for now. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. Piggybacking off of Councilmember Glasscock, are there anything outside of golf carts that this would essentially legalize within residential areas, like riding lawnmowers, anything like that?
No, we tried to lock it down pretty hard when we defined golf cart. We tried to make it clear that we are not encompassing all of these other types of micro, mini vehicles or lawnmowers or anything else. We're talking about a golf cart. Looks something like what we have here. I am aware some have more seats than we do. State statute defines golf cart based on weight and width. So if it comes within those parameters, it would be a golf cart as opposed to an ATV or something else.
Okay, and I don't ride around in golf carts ever. The seatbelt situation in a golf cart, is it usually one big seatbelt across, or is it separate seats, separate seatbelts for separate people? Nobody? Okay.
I don't know the answer to that either. So.
Okay, and I Some constituents have written in concerns that it looks like we have to have rear reflectors. And with it not being out at nighttime, I don't know that this is necessarily important, but are we requiring any extra reflectors on the side, anywhere else on the golf cart, or is it just the rear reflectors?
It has to have the rear reflectors. It also has to have the triangle that you see on farm equipment, for lack of a better word, that would indicate to other people coming up on that vehicle that it's a slow-moving vehicle. But other than that, since we're not allowing operation during the nighttime, doesn't necessarily have to have headlights, but I think most, like this one, have some sort of lighting in the front. But we're not requiring anything additional.
Okay. How are we going to get the news out to this for communities? Is there any signage we're planning or anything like that around golf courses?
I could certainly work with the communications team on messaging, social media, those kind of things. We don't have a plan at this point because we weren't sure what direction the council was going to take.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it.
I have a couple questions regarding sidewalks. Not only are we going to talk about the bikes in the next business item, but this is about golf carts. And I know that there are some golf carts that don't go very fast and actually have utilized sidewalks as a means to get around. Can you tell us the state law regarding the usage of bicycles as well as obviously golf carts? Why not sidewalks?
I can tell you based on the city's ordinances that we don't allow the operation of those items on sidewalks, and it's a safety issue. If I'm walking as opposed to somebody riding the bicycle beside me, next to me, the golf cart coming up behind me, I think the thought is that sidewalks are made to walk on, not ride on. I am familiar that we now have electric scooters and all kinds of things that are utilizing those sidewalks. I would have to pull the ordinance again, but I'm pretty sure that they're not to be operated on the sidewalks either. They're supposed to be in the roadway. So that's certainly the goal of our ordinances is to, if it has wheels, keep it off the sidewalk. If otherwise, it should be on the street in a biking lane if it's a bike. And I don't know whether Captain Stevens has more comments. Way in the back again.
With regard to bicycles on sidewalks, it is my understanding that bicycles are not allowed in the downtown area on sidewalks. They must be on a roadway. Outside of the core downtown area, they are allowed on sidewalks.
Which is also a quick reminder. I know that we still have some snow-packed sidewalks, and that is the responsibility of the property owner, is that correct, to clear them off? I have seen several individuals riding bicycles on main arterial streets because the sidewalk was not snow removed. And so can you address that, either of you, regarding the law about clearing off sidewalks, whose responsibility it is?
I'll have to defer to law. I do not know the answer to that one. I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'll just jump in. It is the responsibility of the property owner, Mayor.
So just a reminder that it is the responsibility of the property owner to remove the snow off the sidewalk in front of your property so that if you're not in the downtown core, a bicycle can ride on the sidewalk, according to Captain Stevens.
I will certainly have to look it up, but it has been my ongoing understanding that in the downtown area, bicycles are not allowed on sidewalks. Outside of the downtown area, they are.
Which then brings me back to the golf cart question. I know that there are some neighborhoods, whether on the east side or west side of town, that an individual would have to cross a sidewalk in order to get to another golf cart friendly neighborhood or golf course. So in this ordinance, you would not be able to even cross that arterial road. Would there be an opportunity for people to cross the arterial road if they're utilizing the crosswalk button and the crosswalk signs?
The way it's currently written, no. And certainly when staff discussed that item, I mean, it's clear that this will cause potential issues for people that are trying to get to the golf courses. If I want to cross Maple, a lot of cities do allow you to cross those arterial streets and roadways. One kind of middle ground is to make them go to an intersection so they're not zooming across Maze Road. And those are certainly options. And again, this is staff's first attempt. We don't necessarily expect that we'll get this done today, but certainly we're here to get input and direction from the council.
Vice Mayor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Captain Stevens, put a lot of work into this, Chief Sullivan, Legal, Sharon, thank you very much. The why on this is because they're illegal everywhere and they're being operated illegal everywhere. We have neighborhoods that people want to get from one, especially in retirement neighborhoods, where people want to get from one person's house to another house without driving their car. They deem it safer to drive a golf cart than to drive a car or go to the clubhouse or whatever that is. Same could be said of making their way to the golf course. Right now, if you own a golf cart in Tallgrass, Reflection Ridge, Crestview, wherever that is, your only means of getting to the first tee or the clubhouse is by the golf cart path. Golf courses do not want you on golf cart paths because there's golfers that are actively playing the golf course, and you can be hit with a golf ball if you're on that path. So a lot of those places, they'll use the roadways to get to the clubhouse, which is illegal right now. And what prompted this, and we just look the other way, just let it go. But what prompted this was there's a neighborhood in West Wichita, is a retirement community, that they have several residents that like to drive to each other's house and get to the clubhouse via their golf cart. And there's another resident who doesn't like their neighbors or golf carts or whatever, but keep calling the police. Police have to come out, maybe hours later, have to come out, take that complaint, write up that complaint, go over and talk to the offenders. And this happens time and time again. And it's just not a good use of our police time. It's a nuisance. And so just trying to get, it's probably the tightest golf cart ordinance around. I understand that. But just trying to get some legality to people using it in a closed community. So that's the reason, and that's why we're not crossing arterial streets too. So that's the why of it, and if anyone has any suggestions or changes, certainly we're open to that. I know Sharon's open to that, so just have a discussion.
I would like to add a comment regarding that. If there was that compromise that you mentioned, utilizing the crosswalk and the crosswalk signal to cross an arterial road, how would that change the ordinance currently drafted?
Currently drafted, the ordinance provides that you cannot cross an arterial street. Let me get the actual section. That would be in section 6, and we would just clarify section B, that it can't be operated on the arterial street. However, golf cart may be used to cross any arterial street at a designated intersection, crosswalk, whatever the council wants that language to be. And I do need to admit that I'm wrong on the operation of bicycles. The city ordinances do allow bicycles on sidewalks. They are prohibited in the central business district
penalty of enforcement there. I think this body should look at defining a geographical area that is the core in everything we do and not changing it based on whatever ordinance we pass, just in the future.
And can I just address that? And the definition has become different over time. Some of those are zoning, which we don't have absolute control over from the zoning code. Others of them are traffic, others of them are licensing. But yes, you're correct. It would be nice to have one central definition, but because we don't regulate golf carts today, but we do 5 years from now, we don't license food trucks 10 years ago when we drafted things, but we do now. I mean, staff tries to be as consistent as we can, but it is difficult. And as you develop that core area, the uses become different.
I think this body probably makes it difficult too, because we probably define different geographical areas at different times with different council people. So I understand, but maybe there's a way in the process or in the future to streamline it.
I also ask the $75 per year, who will be administering that license, and how much time will that cost the staff?
Those licenses will be administered by the city licensing department, the Treasury Department. So they would create all the forms. They would then get the forms and verify the information as well as they can. Part of that is also for administrative costs for PD and enforcement and education.
One more question for you, Sharon. What were some of the major concerns raised by either law or police regarding this ordinance?
I'm gonna talk to police because I've learned not to talk for police. Traffic safety, I think, and I don't know whether Gary Jansen's still here. Just when you add additional traffic to streets, slower moving traffic, maybe not as safety built as a true automobile, and just how those will mesh together. But Gary and/or, do you have any other comments? No. Sure.
Captain Stevens, Wichita PD again. Yeah, Sharon's absolutely right. And also, again, golf carts are not built and made like your typical manufactured motor vehicle. They're crash rated far differently. They don't have all of the same safety features. However, they still have the ability to drive 25, 30, and in even some cases faster than 30 miles an hour. So the concern is high volume traffic on Wichita streets with a vehicle of this type. The concern again is the safety of the operator of that golf cart should there be a collision.
I will also add a couple comments. The prohibition of golf carts on sidewalks, walking trails, and bike paths. I know the Redbud Trail is one that Councilmember Tuttle is passionate about, and I know that Andover is creating a hub at the end of the Redbud Trail on their end, and I've heard from folks asking about utilizing a golf cart to use that bike path to get there. This would disallow it, but you mentioned that golf carts can go 25 to 30, sometimes more, or higher speeds. Can you talk about, again, the prohibition of why not bike paths if they're at a lower speed, if there was a speed limit?
Well, I can just speak anecdotally about golf courses have golf carts specifically designed for golf cart operation in those areas. Bike paths, like on McLean along the river. I'm not really intimately familiar with Redbud, but I do know that when you mix various different types of vehicular traffic, whether it be pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, and now a motorized vehicle on those paths, that would be the concern. The variations in size and speed of vehicles operating on the same small medium are concerning from a safety aspect as well.
Vice Mayor Johnston.
Thank you. I would concur with Captain Stevens, having used this Redbud Trail with bikes, riding with my wife, Sunset Trail, we actually on the west side. And also just downtown in that area, if you have a golf cart, it'll take up most of that trail. And so just as a safety, I'm not sure it's a good place for a golf cart. So that's why we really want to limit it where they can go.
Council Member Glasscock.
Last question I have, this might be for legal or for you. Electric scooters, are they permissible on roads currently in the city?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
I see no further questions for staff. Thank you, Captain Stevens and Sharon. We will now open it up for public comment regarding golf carts. I see none. I'll bring it back to the bench. This was initiated by Vice Mayor Johnston. Councilmember Glasscock.
Just a few comments before we vote. I'm supportive of this. I wish it was less prohibitive as well. I think if we're allowing individuals at 17 to operate a 2-ton truck, we could allow them to operate a golf cart. When we're looking at safety, we allow bicycles on the roads right now. We allow electric scooters on the roads right now. Allowing golf carts and using the argument that's going to be less safe doesn't jive in my head. When we're looking at our communities, we talked about density. Olathe per square mile density is 2,392 individuals. Wichita is 2,427 individuals. So they're similar densities. And so I'm interested to see if there's will from this body to make it less prohibitive. If there's not, I'll support the ordinance as written, but I'd be interested in hearing my colleagues' opinions as well.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. This potential ordinance really makes me nervous. I have a 14-year-old son that's going through driving school right now, and so he'll have his license here shortly, and he needs a lot more practicing driving, certainly before he gets in a golf cart to go drive down arterial roads. So I am having a really hard time supporting this, not because, I think there's obviously adults, and things that can, are fully capable of driving golf carts, but I just am really nervous about potentially opening the floodgates to create more problems for WPD to have to address. So unfortunately for that, I will not be supportive.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you so much. I want to thank staff, legal, finance, public works, Wichita Police Department. I reached out to several of them to ask many questions before coming to a decision. Thank you to Vice Mayor Johnston for your work on this and for initiating this effort. I am not going to be supportive today for the following reasons. I did speak to Wichita Police Department Chief and also several within leadership, and they are concerned about this. They said that they can't really take an official stand, but they do not recommend it, and so that means a great deal to me. Our community survey said that crime prevention is one of the community's highest concerns, but unfortunately they don't think that we're addressing it very well. So adding an unnecessary burden, such as now asking police to monitor golf carts, are they licensed, do they have a sticker, then they have to pull them over. It's taking away what I believe is it's a distraction from what we need to be focusing on is actual crime prevention. The other reason is safety. The Wichita Police Department, again, said because of the safety concerns, they can't recommend it. We're making incredible efforts to make sure our streets are safe. And walking and biking and scootering has been mentioned, but especially walking and biking may be essential travel for some to be able to get to where people live, learn, earn, play, and pray. Golf carts are not essential travel. The other thing is I did some research, and the reason that bikes are considered safe on the road but not golf carts is bikes are bikes are smaller in size, and they also traverse at much slower speeds. So they are considered by most communities safer. And then finally, this is creating a new ordinance, and it's creating a new fee. And I just cannot support adding to government when I don't see a true identified benefit for the community. So I will not be supportive. Thank you.
Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supportive of this. I think you take a certain amount of responsibility upon yourself when you're driving a golf cart around the neighborhood. I do want to make sure that we do everything we can to mitigate any of the dangers that come with it. I think not crossing arterial streets is a big step in that direction. In regards to maybe making it less restrictive regarding crosswalks and whatnot, I definitely do not want to get ahead of WPD, so I don't support that at this time. If we want to have a process to have them look at it, maybe what would be appropriate with it, that's another discussion I think we can come back and address in the future. Yeah, but keeping it restricted to the neighborhoods, I think that is one of the big issues that I think are alleviated by not crossing arterial streets at this time.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I won't rehash everything Councilmember Ballard and Tuttle said, so I am not supportive for those reasons.
Councilmember Glasscock.
I just want to make one quick comment. This is a new ordinance because it's giving people more freedom and more flexibility and lessening the burden of government on individuals. So it's a new ordinance to make it easier for people to live their life.
Vice Mayor Johnston.
I just want to clarify, they're not, to Councilmember Ballard, you cannot operate them on streets. You can't be 14, 15, 16, or 17. You have to be 18 to operate that. So your son's got lots of practice before he's able to operate the golf cart in neighborhood street. I know that Councilmember Tuttle has golf courses in your district that are people are illegally operating them now. Even neighborhoods, it's kind of a thing now in upper end neighborhoods to buy a golf cart and drive around the neighborhood to the swimming pool or the pickleball court or wherever it is. If we don't define where you can do it, the police need to write tickets to people that are on the streets. We'll have people still calling, wanting the police to come out time and time and time again, which has happened, to ticket these people. And right now we're not ticketing them, but it is against the law. It's completely against the law to drive these on sidewalks and any side street. So we should be ticketing these people operating these golf carts. So just want to get a tight ordinance around it to where can operate these golf carts legally. That's the whole reason. You know? I'm against the ordinances too. I don't like them. But let's put some operation around it of where you can operate these golf carts. Because right now it is illegal everywhere, except a few places you can, such as golf carts. So that's about it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnston, this was your ordinance. Would you like to take the honors?
Yeah, and legal may have to help me there. I'd like to adopt the ordinance as written and place it on a first reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 4-3. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
2024 Wichita Bicycle Plan Endorsement.
Good morning, Mayor. Excuse me. Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. Paul Gunzelman with Public Works and Utilities for the record. This morning I will be presenting the 2024 Wichita Bicycle Plan. On February 7th, 2023, the City Council approved a contract with Tuttle Design Group to update the 2013 Wichita Bicycle Master Plan. And I believe Mitch Kaufman with Tuttle Design Group is is attending virtually with us as well today. The plan, this is a high-level view of the plan with the chapters in it, and I'll get into a few more details with these as I go through the presentation. The purpose of the plan was to build off the success of the 2013 plan, to provide a fresh, bold vision and goals, revise the existing plan to meet current needs, and it establishes priorities for the next 10 years, including projects, policies, and programs. There was quite a bit of media coverage as we went through the planning process, through 14 different television and radio stations. Media promotions were put out 3 times during the process to promote engagement opportunities. Public surveys, 2 public surveys were sent out, and approximately over 1,000 responses were received, and those were put out both in English and Spanish. We had pop-up events, 8 pop-up events, as well as public open houses in which 700 attendees attended the open house or pop-up events, as well as presenting to the district advisory boards, as well as the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board. I want to thank all of those who have participated in helping put this plan together. Key takeaways of the plan, or what we had heard, was safety is number 1. Folks want more bicycling opportunities for people, and bicycling shall feel safe and comfortable. The community input was vital in establishing vision and goals, challenges and opportunities, helping us develop the long-term bikeway network, as well as identifying priority bikeways. The vision had 4 main ideas: to provide bicycling as safe, comfortable, convenient, and encouraged. Chapter 3 kind of goes into the existing conditions. There are challenges to achieving the goals as well as opportunities, as we had heard as we went through the engagement. This chapter lays out many of the challenges and opportunities based on assessment of the built environment, several analysis, and public input. And there are currently 133 bicycle facilities within the city of Wichita, and the city has added 70 miles of bikeways since the 2013 plan was adopted. The principles used to develop the long-term bikeway network, connecting important destinations like schools, parks, recreation centers, libraries, large employment campuses, etc. Direct routes with minimal acceptable deviations. Spacing of 1/4 to 1/2 mile in established central area, and 1/2 mile to 1 mile suburban and in other areas. And I will talk about that a little bit more, and I have an example of that here on some future slides. Regional routes to connect to neighboring cities and expand the Greenway shared use path network. Also, all routes should be available for all ages and abilities. Chapter 4 includes some of the facility types. Again, most of these were in the 2013 plan. Bicycle boulevards, such as the Armour Bike Boulevard on the east side or the Woodchuck Bike Boulevard on the west side of town. These are typically through neighborhood streets, on collector streets. It's a shared space with motor vehicles, low speeds, and the plan would suggest putting in some traffic calming measures to decrease the speeds, and we have been doing that. And some of the newer developments, working with traffic engineering, narrowing the streets and areas to slow traffic. On-street bike lanes, since the 2013 plan, we have put some on-street bike lanes in, and to be honest, we've been getting better as we've put additional ones in, improved the design on that. We have heard from the Bike Ped Advisory Board as others that they would like to see a more separated bike lane with buffers and or some vertical component, such as we did on West 21st Street with the tubular markers. And I understand that does cause some maintenance issues to keep those bike paths cleared. So we need to continue to work on that as we implement more of the plan. Separated bike lanes. This is designating an exclusive space for bicyclists in the street. Buffers are preferred, which provides horizontal separation between bicyclists and motor vehicles. This is an example of one that we have recently completed through the Delano area of the Chisholm Trail Parkway. As you can see on the right side of the picture, that there is a dedicated space for cyclists with the street in the center, and then we have a sidewalk on the south side of the road. Shared use paths such as the Redbud Trail and or the Midtown Bike Path. And then providing safe crossings for arterial streets. This is an example of one that we had done out at Central and Red Barn to cross Central. We put in a raised median prior to that being constructed. Motorists could turn all directions as they left Red Barn. We made that a right in, right out, and provided a median there so that pedestrians and or cyclists can cross half a Central at a time. And we would continue that through this new plan as well. This is a map of the priority bikeways as well as the long-term bike network. And I might come back to this in a little bit as well. As I mentioned before, we can deviate from the priority network, and a good example of this is the Chisholm Trail Parkway that I'd mentioned before. The plan shows that Douglas from Main Street to Seneca is a priority network. We have recently completed the Chisholm Trail Parkway between McLean and Seneca, just west of Seneca, shown on the brown line there, which is approximately 1 block north of Douglas. So this would serve as the network through that area so that we would not have to change lane configuration on Douglas and or the existing parking. Chapter 5 includes implementation and priority actions. This describes how the city will implement the plan, provides policy and programmatic actions for city staff to work on, as well as identify infrastructure projects, priority bikeways, and or other opportunities for constructing bikeways. The action plan, the structure is a work plan for the city. City staff representatives help to create this work plan, and the work plan also identifies time frames for actions such as short-term, 0 to 3 years, medium-term actions 4 to 10, and then others beyond 10 years. The priority bikeways, this is how the priority bikeways were established. Systematic safety, equity to provide services in those areas that need it, trip potential, as well as public input. And within the 2024 plan, there is 33.5 miles of priority bikeways identified. Project delivery methods. This is a proactive delivery, which would be standalone projects within the CIP. There is currently a line item in the CIP for bikeways and bike improvements that has $1 million in 2025 that will be utilized to complete the second phase of the Delano Path, Chisholm Trail Pathway Parkway out towards Prairie Sunset Trail. There is also funding in 2029 as well as 2031 and 2033. That funding is local funding, and that is typically used for standalone projects and or to leverage any federal dollars that we can use to implement this plan. Opportunistic project delivery. This identifies opportunities to integrate bikeways into street projects, especially if on the long-term bikeway network, such as CIP street reconstruction projects or our outsourced pavement preservation projects. Each year we sit down with maintenance staff and review the upcoming projects to see if there's an opportunity to restripe a roadway to include bicycle facilities. I'm going to go back to the map. Another example that we could implement as part of this 2024 plan, the long-term bikeway network, is East Harry Street from 127th to 143rd Street. We have a CIP project to reconstruct that roadway or improve that roadway from a 2-lane street to a 3-lane street, and with that we would include a 10-foot multi-use path on one side of the street as well as a sidewalk on the other side. The other project that we have upcoming is 127th Street. That, as an example, there between 13th and 21st Street, or actually it goes from Douglas to 13th Street, I apologize. An on-street path has been constructed on the area between 21st and 13th Street. We would ask the consultant to look at continuing that on-street pathway south, but however look at more of a separated bike lane and or buffered bike lane in lieu of what is already there. So that helps us build out the network as well on some of the existing CIP projects that we have. Annual reporting, we meet monthly with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board. We would have a more robust, keep a better track of some of the paths projects that we do, including pedestrian pathways. I know WAMPO has ordered some traffic counters that we could utilize to take bicycle counts at locations in Wichita to see how many folks are using the existing pathways. And then again, general reporting on progress and strategies. One of the things that is on the list that we have just started on was maintenance of the existing pathways is big, or is a priority of the Bike Ped Advisory Board. We were going to meet with our park and recreation staff as well as Public Works and our maintenance to make sure we know who maintains the paths and do an assessment of the paths in 2025, similar to what we do on our arterial streets or our street network, so that we can get a good baseline of condition of the pathways that they are in now and develop a maintenance plan. I want to mention that no funding is attached to this plan. Any project identified for design and or construction will come to the City Council for approval at a future date. With that, it is recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution endorsing the 2024 Wichita Bicycle Plan and authorize the necessary signatures. And I will stand for questions. And Mitch, did you have anything to add that I missed?
That was wonderful, Paul. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Mitch. We'll begin with Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Paul and Mitch and Holly and Alan. I see a bunch of people back there as well who had their fingerprints on this. Just a couple of quick questions here. Going through the plan, it talks about low-stress networks. Is there an amount of cars per minute, cars per day? What's the kind of the benchmark to qualify for a low-stress network?
Mitch, I'll have you weigh in on that, if you would, please.
Hi, I'll jump in too. I'm Tammy Sufi with Tool Design in our Kansas City office. And I just wanted to quickly say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to work on this project. I think it was a really great project for the city, and we're excited to see you start to implement parts of it. For low stress, it's a combination of factors. There's a pretty detailed description in the plan and the appendices, but it does go through some things like the posted speed, the level of bike facilities that may already exist, the average daily traffic, and some other factors. So there's not a specific number, but we do look at the combination of those factors and how they result in the overall bicycling experience.
Okay, I appreciate that. When we're talking micromobility, does this also include rascals, electric wheelchairs, any other mobility devices that might help with people with disabilities get around?
Mitch, I'll have you weigh in on that as well. I know we talked about some of the electric scooters, but beyond that.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, in general, no. Those are more pedestrian speed. So generally, they're more like pedestrians than bicycles, and this is a bicycle plan. So micromobility here means things that generally travel at the speed of your typical bicyclists. So e-bikes, e-scooters, one wheels, things like that.
Okay, just two or three quick more questions here. They talk about a staff person responsible for helping to implement this plan. Do we already have somebody who is assigned and works with, just to ensure that we catch up to the bicycle plan that we previously had while looking at new projects around the city?
Yes, thank you for asking that, because I meant to mention that. But yes, we do. We have an identified staff person that works in engineering, yes.
Okay. Then two more questions. Widening streets, is this locked into the plan where we're redoing some streets? Are we planning on widening any of them to allow for additional bicycle lanes, or is this more try and fit it in where we can identify that the streets are wide enough?
Are you asking about maintenance of streets
Or just whenever we redo streets, so.
So regarding the maintenance, as I mentioned, we do look at the streets with the, that are on the upcoming OP3 project. Lincoln Street, for example, between Woodlawn and Rock, we had looked at that last year. Again, it was 4-lane roadway. We looked to right-size that to a 3-lane. It calls for bike lanes within the plan, however, there wasn't space for that, so we had not done that. We'll have to look for an alternate route or do an off-street. But within our capital improvement program, yes, we do look at, as we design those, if they're on the plan, then we look at either widening and or, as I mentioned, to include a 10-foot side path on one side of the arterial or the other.
Okay, appreciate that. And then the last one's kind of a concern. A couple of these routes that we have identified, such as West Street, there's some concern about some big trucks on West Street. Oliver and Pawnee. Oliver, when Spirit gets out and the aircraft industry gets out, that can get pretty populated. And also Pawnee. There's a stretch there along Pawnee. I don't know how often people go riding down Pawnee. It can be pretty hairy there for a couple of stretches. So before we put them in there, what are the processes that we go through to ensure that it is a safe route that we are putting on there?
We would look at those, and as a, within the plan, we do have the ability to, move the route off of the priority network from a quarter mile to a half mile in the central core area, or up to a half mile to 1 mile in the suburban areas. So for example, Oliver Street, if we look at that, if we look at maybe Edgemore to the east, that might make more sense to put it there, and it's still within that half mile. So we would look at those corridors prior to implementation.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Council Member Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 5 questions. I'll try and start with the quickest to maybe the longest. Page 55, I know you briefly hit on this in and this is 55 of the presentation, maybe not on the map, regarding Douglas Avenue from Meridian to Seneca. So is that removed from this plan?
So since we have constructed, I think, is this the slide you're looking at?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have the numbers here, sorry. So this would, as it mentioned, Douglas was listed as a priority network. We're on the priority network. However, since we did complete that Chisholm Trail Parkway there, a block to the north, then we would not anticipate any bike facilities on Douglas.
Okay, so no additional facilities on Douglas because of this lane?
Correct.
Okay, that was number 1. Page 45, page 54, and page 59 of the actual document, it wasn't in the presentation, talks about requiring private developers to do things, so requiring private developers to offer bicycle racks, requiring them to offer bicycle parking, and then there's a third one as well. What was the justification for that from the board?
Part of that, bicycle parking, and I think that's an appendix to the plan, if I recall that correctly, Mitch. It would provide, kind of type of bicycle racks to use, et cetera. Regarding the development, we would, and we've tried to begin to implement some of that just with the pedestrian connections. To look at as areas are platted, if you have a cul-de-sac that is adjacent to an arterial street, maybe you put a connection, on the top of that cul-de-sac to the arterial so that either cyclists or pedestrians don't have to walk all the way through the neighborhood to the collector street to get out to that. So we would look at that through the planning process, platting process to see if it makes sense to make those connections.
I have some concerns about endorsing some of this as requires for private development. Of the 11 fatal crashes and 900 injuries in the report, of the 73 miles proposed in this, out of the 4,866 miles in the city, how many of those would have been on these 73 miles?
I don't have that off the top of my head. Mitch, do you have that? Would you know that?
I can't answer that specific question, but the analysis shown on page 20 and 21 of the report is our systemic safety analysis, the results of that. That's a brief summary of the, basically it's the crash history and identifies characteristics of those streets, and then identifies them as more dangerous for bicyclists. So that was used in selecting the priority. So in general, that reflects crash history for cyclists.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a look at that. Page 97 of the document, or not page 97, page 7, says that we've seen bicycle ridership and usage increase, though that's in conflict with page 52, which says that we have limited to non-existent data regarding ridership and usage. So how do we make both of those things compatible? We say that we've seen an increase, but then later on in the document, we say that we can't see an increase because we see limited to non-existent data, and that we have to have this plan to have more data for the future to be able to justify the plan.
I'm sorry, could you repeat those page numbers?
Page 7 says that we've seen an increase, and then page 52 says that data is limited to, quote, non-existent regarding bicycle usage and ridership.
I believe that was the first statement is embracing bicycling, not necessarily actual usage. And that's based upon the survey results from the survey, the general survey that Wichita does annually. And then for actual counts, we are very limited to what we have. Their WAMPO does counts that does show general increases. However, those locations are very limited. So we don't have a lot of confidence in defining the actual growth of bicycling.
I mean, that's something I would probably endorse from this plan is more data regarding the increase in ridership for future decisions, especially when they come before capital improvement projects. So last question I have, and I know that there's probably other people on the board as well, is though the document says that this is an endorsement of the plan, there's often when staff comes before this body, they use the plan to justify the proposed action before the staff. So out of this plan, what is the projected cost in CIP and what is not projected in the current CIP over the next 10 years?
That is a difficult question for me to answer as far as the cost to implement the plan, because we don't know what will be constructed along either the priority network or projects identified in the long-term plan, such as, whether we would construct on-street bike lanes, which would be more costly than to construct a side path. So, as I mentioned before we implemented any of these plans or any project, we would bring that to the city council as a concept design prior to going construction, and we'd have a better estimate at that.
So we have no estimate if we were to implement every single thing in this document as what this vote will take, because it's supposed to endorse this document. We have no idea how much endorsing this document would actually cost.
We do not knowing what type of facility would be constructed along that segment of roadway.
We have a minimum?
For a recent cost on a 10-foot side path along an arterial street is about $5 per square foot, which is probably $250,000 for a mile of 10-foot side path along an arterial street.
So at a minimum, so I'll do the quick math and come back. But you said $250,000 for every mile. There's 73. Okay. Thank
And
you.
then if we do, if some of this is implemented through an OP3 project where we might be able to restripe a 4-lane roadway to a 3-lane roadway that would still provide us space for on-street bike lanes, then that's just, in essence, the difference of cost of striping.
So if we're looking at theoretically the minimum of 250, theoretically on a mile, 73 miles, that's $18,250,000 is what we would endorse by voting in favor of this today.
And then part of that, I think part of your second question, maybe if I understood that correctly, but we do have, the line item identified in the CIP for bikeways that, like I said, I think it's $1 million in 2025, and then 1.8 in 2029, $2 million in 2031, and 1.5 million in 2033 is the funding that we have identified.
So this would theoretically be an increase of what's projected in the CIP. If the bare minimum could be 18 million, based on what we have in the CIP, this would be an increase.
We would, as staff, we would, we're held to what's in the CIP. That's the funding that we have to implement this plan. Now, we would, as I mentioned before, we would leverage that general obligation dollars to, get maybe federal funding or something to help implement this plan, similar to what we did on the Red Bed Trail.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have lots of questions. I'll start off with, can you please tell us, this plan came before a previous council, February 7th, 2023. How much was the contract to Tuttle Design Group?
I do not have that. Mitch, do you?
Yeah, it's approximately $460,000, and then we had 3 sub-consultants that worked with us as well.
What is the total bill for the study, the Wichita Bicycle Master Plan study?
It would be that amount. Yes.
That's it? 460,000, period?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, so it costs $460,000 to create a study that now comes before this council. And I know that it says financial consideration, no funding attached. But as Council Member Glasscock has been asking these questions, there is a financial commitment while it would still come before the council for further approvals. Endorsing this would signal that we would want to make a financial investment into bike paths. So I am very concerned about that, number one. Number two, I'd like to know, the question I asked previously during the golf cart conversation was, are bicycles allowed on sidewalks? And the answer was not within the downtown core, but outside of the downtown core, bicycles are allowed on sidewalks. So did this plan take into consideration that there are sidewalks and how many lane miles of sidewalks are allowed? Because that would add and increase the network of bicycle path lane miles.
We did not take into consideration the existing sidewalks, no. If that was your question. Go ahead.
And I can chime in with that if that's okay. Sidewalks can be an opportunity for bicyclists, for young children, et cetera. They do also create a conflict with pedestrians. So they're not really the ideal place for a bicyclist to be located, particularly if they're traveling 12, 13 miles per hour. So that's why we do look at those standalone facilities for bicyclists, or look at ways that they can be incorporated into existing roadways, things like that. It doesn't mean that it can't be done, but that is one of the concerns with putting bicyclists on sidewalks.
I would challenge that rhetoric, because Wichita is different than Kansas City, as it's different than Tulsa and different than other communities. And we are a very spread out community. This community has 5,200 lane miles of roads. I'd like to know how many lane miles of sidewalks Wichita currently has, and divided between in the downtown core and how we're defining that, and outside of the downtown core, as I would like to let the community know that they are allowed to ride their bicycles on those sidewalks. So, number one, if I can have staff let us know exactly how many lane miles of sidewalks we have, because I received an email from someone who wanted us to support this plan, but I asked the question, what is your biggest concern as a bicycle rider right now? And the answer was, my biggest concern with the current bike system is the maintenance and upkeep of the existing infrastructure. So before building something new, I would like to know about the maintenance of the existing system, not just the bike paths, but also the sidewalks. As we've learned from these last two business items, the sidewalks, yes, are for walking pedestrians, but also they can be utilized for bicycle riders. And I would say that that would be a priority rather than building something new. I would rather see the maintenance of the current system and the sidewalks being upkept first. So that's more of a comment. A side comment regarding the studies that I'd like city manager to also look into. I would like to know how many studies the city of Wichita currently has outstanding. What's the status of the studies and the cost of those studies? So this specific study regarding bicycles, again, was back in 2023, and it cost the city $460,000. So I'd like to know just how many studies the city currently has. And I understand that we have to have a plan moving forward so that we can continue being a city that is welcoming and has quality of life amenities. But I believe that the quality of life amenities we currently have need to be upkept first and maintained first. So I have a grave concern regarding adding anything new. And again, I think questions were already asked, but my questions really are about how we're gonna fund this. $18 million was what Council Member Glasscock said, if according to your numbers, $250,000 for 1 lane mile of bike path, and this plan endorses 73 additional miles for a total of 18 million. If I remember correctly, 18 million is also the deferred maintenance number for parking structures. And I believe that that also is going to come from the CIP. So that gives me grave concern also. It exactly matches that number, $18 million. So I have a lot of concern regarding being fiscally responsible, whether or not endorsing this would signal that we are prioritizing something that the community has not asked us to prioritize. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Man, that's a lot. One, I would highlight that there is no financial attachment to this plan. It's simply a plan. Plans guide things. So let's say we were constructing a street and the plan would say there should be a sidewalk there, which we've already kind of had that in policy. We build sidewalks on one side of the street. I know I've said we should do both, but we do one side of the street. This may guide where that may go, on which side of the street that would go. It's simply a plan. Also, as we do get federal funding, as Paul said, there could be funding attached that allows some of that $18 million over that period of time to be paid. I'd bring everyone's attention to 17th Street, McAdams Park, the north side. We had federal funding there, and federal funding actually helped pay for some of those improvements. Again, simply a plan. We can answer some of those questions per state statute. Sidewalks are the adjacent property owner's responsibility, not the city of Wichita. We would install it. The adjacent property owner would have to maintain it if something happened, unless it was our fault, which we would address that. And also on the report for the lane miles on sidewalks, I question that because we know that you can or cannot ride on sidewalks with a bike, so we would just need to look at changing policy if that was the case. But I would say Bike Walk Wichita is here, I have also heard from local bikers, so not other cities, not other states, that talk about the use of sidewalks so pedestrians could get hit by someone on the bike. It's difficult. That's why we started building those wider walkways, so both could fit, but our normal standard sidewalks really shouldn't have both on there. I know as kids, we all did it, I did it, but that's not what that's for. If the council would like to change that based on local feedback, I think that's a conversation we should have. But just telling people that we have 10,000 lane miles of sidewalks really won't matter if it's illegal to use them in some spaces and not others. That's more of a, let's talk about policy. But again, this is a plan. Plans guide what we do. Wichita has been working for quite some time before I was on council to be more walkable, bikeable city, more welcoming, more accessible. That's what this plan would help us get to. And yes, there may be some things in there that some don't agree with, but our goal was to always work towards being more bikeable, walkable. We paid a firm to help us get to that point, looking in detail throughout the city of how we could implement that. And again, even I would say I'm supportive of it. I know the work that's went into it, working with these groups. I see the great usage of there, but again, there's no funding attached to this. If we say yes today, the city's not spending any extra dollars. It's going to guide how we construct and design our city.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Councilmember Johnson's comments. Many of them echo my own feelings. $460,000 is a lot of money to do this plan, but this is not something that just happened overnight. There has been tons and tons and tons of input, and someone that is a hobby cyclist, the sidewalks are not, in my opinion, made for riding, maybe for kids or, in the neighborhood or something like that. But the people that are utilizing the bike lanes, it's their means of transportation. We can't just say that we want to be a more walkable, rideable city that is connected to the other adjacent communities unless we provide a safe way for them to get there. So while this has taken, quite a long time and has probably cost more than we think it either should, or just everything costs a lot of money, but I think it's really important to have an overview of what we have and where we can go to connect to the communities around us. And I do think it's important to take care of what we have. I represent a big portion of where our current bike lanes are, and some people love them, some people hate them, but I do think that they provide a safe way for cyclists to get to where they're going, and I will be supportive.
Councilmember Glasscock.
I just wanted to address one quick thing. It was $250,000 minimum, so $18,000 is looking at a minimum cost, not a maximum cost. Also, federal funding is still taxpayer funding, whether it's coming from local taxpayer dollars or federal taxpayer dollars. So I think we should be very clear about that as well. And the last comment, and then I know we'll open up to comments. We have this document. We can use this as a guide. We don't have to endorse it, and we can still use this as a guide. So by saying that we're throwing this in the trash, if that's the case, we still paid for this. We could still use this as a guide for things that make sense and things that don't make sense as well.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I'll have more comments after we open it up for public comment, but while we're in this discussion, I thought of something timely that might provide a little bit of context as well. I was part of the master bicycle plan and the master pedestrian plan process as a community member long before I was on council. And in 2016, 2017, I met with Scott Wadle, who is now our wonderful metropolitan area planning director, but at the time he was working in this arena in bike ped and in the master bike plan and the master pedestrian plan. And Scott and I were meeting, and I asked him what in the master bicycle plan was not being completed so far, if he could give me some updates on things that the community, such as Bike Walk Wichita and the Health and Wellness Coalition, could focus on. And he mentioned a bike share system. And so because we had a plan and because we had outlined future growth and future opportunities for the community, I was able to use the master bicycle plan to go to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, who has fully funded the bike share ICT program since 2017. Had we not had a master bicycle plan, we would have not had the opportunity to have that public-private partnership. So when we're looking at this plan, that's also in the context of what I'm thinking, such as Redbud Trail and different things where we're seeking private dollars as well. But having some sort of plan and some sort of future direction provides, it just makes it easier to have those connections and to have those discussions with private funders as well. So just a little context and just a thought. Thank you.
I see no further questions for staff. Thank you. We will now open it up for public comment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Siri, 707 North Emporia, Wichita, Kansas, 67214. Hi, I know many of you have met me before, seen me on TV. Thank you so much for letting me be here. Thank you so much to the advisory board for letting me sit in on some of their visits. I really strongly suggest endorsing this plan. I think the cost of not doing it would provide more burden to our taxpayers, and I think would limit the choices that they deserve for getting mobile within our city. According to AAA for 2024, the cost for a household of just owning a car is over $12,000 per year. Allowing citizens the options of how they want to get around can reduce some of those financial burdens when we limit them to a single modality such as using a motorized vehicle. As we have an aging population who would also like options such as golf carts for getting around, providing safe ways to get around our city allows them to age gracefully once those car keys are taken away, that they can still go out and enjoy those friendships. They can still go to our small businesses. As a pediatrician, I'm also a childhood obesity specialist. As we keep expanding our car lanes, we are expanding our children's waistlines, unfortunately. We all grew up with the opportunity to bike down to the corner store and buy ice cream. That is a rarity today. We are seeing increased rates of ADHD and behavioral concerns because children are living a life where they are being shunted in a suburban between Costco and Home Depot. That there are fewer opportunities for them to walk and bike to school, to burn off those wiggles before they have to sit down and concentrate and use that brain power. I serve an underserved population. When they have something like a seizure and are no longer allowed to drive for 6 months, when there's a car problem, they can't make it to their appointments if there aren't alternative transportation options. And I myself do use my bicycle to get around this city, and it makes me feel much more connected to the wonderful opportunities that we have here. For example, I live near 29th and Rock, and I do bike to St. Francis on a regular basis thanks to the Redbud Trail. You know what the Redbud Trail doesn't have? Potholes. That's because biking infrastructure is one of the cheapest and easiest types of infrastructure to install and maintain. Similarly, if I want to bike, unfortunately, to St. Joe, though, and I want to use Armour Boulevard, there are 17-year-olds who are driving 2-ton trucks that I have to compete for space with, so I feel less safe. If I use the sidewalks along Oliver, unfortunately, the number of cars and their driveways blocking the sidewalk means I have to go less than half my normal speed. And all the cutouts for those driveways mean I get seasick when I do try to pick up my speed. When I have elderly grandparents who are trying to work with their youngsters and their families and their neighborhoods, unfortunately, they're very frustrated that they can't safely get them to a park and that there's not enough parking if they were to use a vehicle. That when it really comes down to the quality of life, we need to be providing these options so that folks can get out and get that fresh air, reduce the amount of heat they're generating as we are a heat island, reduce the amount of ozone production that is causing more flares in COPD and in asthmatics, and we need to encourage people to come back to a person level, not a car level in our city. Businesses that are located next to biking or shared lanes have a massive increase in number of folks coming through that door. But if you're zooming by 40 miles an hour, you forget the small business owners in your area. So again, thanks to the Redbud Trail, I've probably spent several $100s more than I ever meant to at Johnson's Garden Center because I pass by on such a regular basis. So again, I would please beg you, this idea of endorsing this plan, of full-throated saying we are a city that is vibrant, that offers choices, that allows folks to avoid the burden of car ownership consistently, would enrich Wichita to a degree that would create a legacy that you could be part of. Many, many, many metropolitan areas are adopting these changes. I would hate for us to slow down our enthusiasm for such a bold vision. Thank you again for the opportunity today.
Thank you, Dr. Siri. We'll continue with public comment.
Good morning again, City Council, Mayor. I'm Harlan Bascom, 5514 South Santa Fe in District 3. In theory, I'm all for the bicycle lanes. I've ridden a bike to work before. I live down at 55th and Broadway, and I used to work at City Hall. So I have used the bike path, particularly along the river, in order to do that. But here's some of the observations I've had recently driving to work along some of the bicycle lanes. There's a lot of motor vehicle traffic in the bicycle lanes because there's no separation. Now, I heard Paul talk earlier about some type of bumper lane or perhaps cones that help separate the two lanes. But the way they are currently with just a line on the ground, people tend to drive over in that lane. People pass me on the right. I see vehicles parking in the bicycle lanes. So now the bicyclists have to go out into the traffic lane in order to get around the cars that are parked. And then you got the bicyclists who just disregard the lanes altogether. They'll be going against traffic the wrong way on streets that already have bicycle lanes. So I just don't see the reason of having them unless we're going to have some type of way of enforcing them. I realize the police department is probably who's supposed to be enforcing these lanes, but do we really know how we're supposed to be using them? Maybe we need to have some type of public education so that people do know how to use them. We need to have some type of enforcement. Perhaps the bicycle patrol with the police department could concentrate on that from time to time. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is some of our arterial streets, one in particular, Broadway, they've reduced from 4 lanes to 2 lanes plus a turn lane and bicycle lanes. That causes a bottleneck between 13th and 21st Street. Again, I experienced that this last week, and there was about 15 cars waiting at a stoplight there at 17th because you didn't have, in my mind, adequate traffic flow in one direction. That's all I really have, just a few observations. Thank you.
Thank you, Harlan. We'll continue with public comment.
Good morning. I'm Alan Kaler, and I'm here on behalf of Bike Walk Wichita in support of this plan. It's actually kind of hard to follow Dr. Siri. I thought she did a great job addressing many of the concerns, and I will try to highlight, emphasize some particular areas. First of all, as has been talked about, this is just a plan. It doesn't require any changes. It doesn't certainly doesn't close down any streets. It doesn't ban cars from any place, and it doesn't require any spending. On the flip side of your spending concerns, Councilman Glasscock, as Councilman Tuttle pointed out, without a plan in place, it is hard to get the momentum to accomplish anything. Under the 2013 plan, we accomplished not only the bike share, but also the extension of the Prairie Sunset Trail and the Redbud Trail. And without having a plan there to encourage that, then very likely those wouldn't have happened. And that's what this plan is intended to do. The main reason to adopt the plan, though, is for reasons of safety. People ride bikes for a variety of reasons. We've already had some of the speakers address it, but 7% of the households in the city don't even have a vehicle. And in some neighborhoods, that's more than 20% of the households don't have a vehicle. In addition, there are people that are legally prohibited from driving. There are people that have physical conditions that prohibit them from driving. I've personally worked, in the past year, I've worked with 2 people in professional positions who had neurological issues and were not able to get a driver's license. Therefore, they used a bike as their primary means of transportation. We have to be able to provide for those people. And as Dr. Siri pointed out, children under the age of 16 use the bikes to get to their school and to other things that they do. I share Harlan's, I apologize, don't remember your last name, concern about the safety of the people. And so one of the things that this plan does is you'll see a reference to the fact of all ages and abilities network. It's intended to make it safe for everyone of all ages and abilities to travel, including children and including people who are not necessarily comfortable riding in the street. So the focus of the plan is safety. Just last year alone, in addition to the statistics cited in the plan, but just last year alone, there were 174 people seriously injured or killed riding a bike in crashes with motor vehicles. We need to make the city safer for people that are using their bikes. I want to circle back to the folks that are using the bikes as essential transportation. Probably the best example that I have of that is through my own work with Bike Walk Wichita. As most of you know, one of our primary programs is our Recycle program, where we essentially take donations of bikes, we fix them up, and we give them away. When I say we give them away, what we do is we work with a couple of dozen other organizations, with the HOT Team, with Humankind, with the VA, with Open Door. Those other organizations essentially help people get jobs, they help them get housing, but then they need transportation to get back and forth. And they can't afford a car, they can't get a driver's license for various reasons. A bike is the only viable means of transportation for them. So these organizations that we work with send people to us and ask us to give them a bike. We gave away several hundred bikes every year to people in this program, so that enabling them to get to jobs. And I have personally talked to many of them, and they have not, the bike is essential for their transportation. Frankly, if they don't have a bike, they don't have a job. So looks like I'm running out of time. I spent more time addressing some of the questions than I intended. But for all these reasons, I would ask you to endorse this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We'll continue with public comment.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Happy New Year. My name is Vince Hancock. I live in the Delano neighborhood. First of all, I do want to give a shout out to our wonderful Public Works Department for doing a long, hard job of 12-hour shifts to keep our lanes clear for both our motor vehicles and for our bicycles. The last time I rode over 4 miles in 4 inches of snow was 1991. It worked, and this is on a bicycle. I don't look forward to repeating it again, and that's why it's lovely to have great streets. We have to deal with sand, but that's a different thing. I do want to get out of the way. I do feel we paid a little too much on this study. I appreciate that our bidding process gives it to the lowest bidder. I feel that our city was not served by picking somebody out of town, because just like today's meeting, they literally phoned it in. They had one meeting in our neighborhood at Friends University, and then when we had to try to have another meeting over at the senior center, they kept passing it on, and that meeting never happened. It would have been phenomenally well attended. They just canceled it out. So I'm not going to say that they were acting like a tool, but that's literally their name, and I feel that they didn't do us well by that. Moving on. This plan, as you said, is a plan. It's a guideline. It's a recommendation. It's flawed. We can see that it's flawed on page 120 when it says that there's this thing coming up, a future concept called the Chisholm Trail Parkway. Yeah, it's out of date. Do we update it? Do we spend more money to actually replace all instances of 2024 with 2025? Do we strike out the fact that Chisholm Trail Parkway is planned as opposed to completed? Our immediate former vice mayor was there to dedicate it. And thank you, Maggie. We know what that's going to be. It's also a bit of an experiment. We have technical lanes where it's here's where your car goes. Here's where your bike goes. Here where is your pedestrian goes. Under city law, I can't tell a pedestrian to get out of my bike lane, and I can't, if I'm a pedestrian, I can't tell a bike to get off my sidewalk. We've got both areas as an encouragement that maybe the bikes will be here, maybe the pedestrians will be here. Also on that page where it talks about Delano, it talks about putting Douglas on a road diet. It plans on removing 85 parking spaces to get room for 2 lanes on Douglas. We all know that's not going to happen. It's what's written in this plan. I think we have a verbal agreement. We're going to ignore that. Last but not least, I do want to get into another thing from the 80s. I've been riding bikes since the 80s. I've been in every wicked wind since 1990, except for one where I had the death of an immediate family member the month ahead of that time. So I put in at least 1,000 miles a year. Back in the 80s, we had these wonderful things called video games. And I encourage every 14-year-old who's driving to learn to play the video game called Frogger. It's where we learn how to cross the street when there's semis there and when to just go, maybe I'll just stay on this side of the street. There's something that we can't put into the law, but it's called the right-of-way. We can't put it in the most obvious way. And the best way to describe right-of-way, it's what I taught my neighbor 2 girls when I taught them to ride their bicycles. With the exception of an airplane on a runway and a train, the little guy should always be given the right-of-way. A semi should yield to a van should yield to a truck should yield to a car should yield to a golf cart should yield to a bicycle, and a bicycle on a sidewalk must always yield to a pedestrian. And under city law, which is a phenomenal use of common sense, if a bicycle approaches behind a pedestrian, we are required to give them an audible notification that we're about to pass them. Most of us will say, bicycle passing on your left. And when people don't do that in front of me, I encourage them to do that because it's how we share those sidewalks together when they're not snow covered. It's how we work together safely. I would not be in favor of banning bicycles on sidewalks because of that right-of-way issue. We can share them together. And so many times when I see people on our established 8 and 12-foot wide bike paths, we do get people who just say, hey, thanks for letting me know. People with their dogs that go, oh, thanks, that lets me know to hold on tight to that leash. We can share them together. It's safe. It's wonderful. This plan's not a perfect plan, but I think if we put it in place and know that it's a plan, we just did a Chisholm Trail Parkway that was part of the plan 20 years ago. The goal was to get it done in 5 to 10. Sometimes they take longer, especially when budgets don't allow. Appreciate your time. Stand for any questions.
Thank you, Vincent. We'll continue with public comment.
Good morning, Mayor Wu and members of council. My name is Holly Terrell, and I am the Executive Director of Bike Walk Wichita. I'm here today to voice my strong support of the proposed master bike plan. As someone deeply involved in promoting safe, sustainable, and accessible transportation options, I see this plan as a critical step toward continuing to make Wichita a city where everyone can feel confident walking or biking. The proposed improvements to infrastructure, connectivity, and education address many of the barriers that residents currently face when considering alternative transportation. A well-executed bike plan benefits cyclists and the entire community. By investing in safe and connected bike lanes, we create safer streets for pedestrians, reduce congestion for drivers, and improve access to jobs, schools, and other essential services. Research consistently shows that cities with robust biking infrastructure enjoy increased economic vitality, improved public health outcomes, and a higher quality of life. At Bike Walk Wichita, we work closely with residents from all corners of our city, and we hear a consistent message. People want safer options for walking and biking. For parents who want their kids to bike to school safely, or seniors who are seeking a more active lifestyle, this plan represents an opportunity to meet those needs and build a more equitable, connected Wichita. I also want to emphasize the long-term value of this investment. A forward-thinking bike plan positions Wichita as a leader in sustainable urban development. It shows that we prioritize our residents' well-being and embrace the economic and environmental challenges of our future. I urge the council to approve this plan and commit to its implementation. Together, we can create a city where walking and biking are safe, viable options that we celebrate everywhere. Thank you for your time and for your dedication to making Wichita a better, more communicated city.
Thank you, Holly. We'll continue with public comment.
Doug Ballard, District 6. Of course, I think most of you know that I ride a bike, and I ride a bike a lot. So these are just a few comments. They're not particularly related to anything, but I've asked several businesses in the Delano area to add a bicycle rack, and neither one of them would do it. One of them said that they didn't want to give up a parking space. The other one gave no reason at all. I'll just use, for instance, the Brahms at Seneca and Douglas. I'm not going to say it's an exaggeration to say that half of their customers walk to the store, but there's no way to, this in regards to your comment about bike racks, there's several places that I would go if I could lock my bike up when I got there, but I'm not going to ride and run the risk of leaving my bike out there and it's gone when I come back. So the only way you can get some of these people to do that is to tell them you got to put a bicycle rack in. For 100 years, we have emphasized the automobile. I mean, we all know that. For 50 years, we've known that it solves problems, but it also creates problems, and we're in a super crisis right now. Somewhat unrelated, I gave a big speech at a bachelor's party in the summer of 1967 that the climate change, we were calling it global warming at the time, would bankrupt the insurance industry. It's happening. I thought it would happen a little quicker, but it's happening. So we have got to de-emphasize the automobile, and going from gas to electric is somewhat of a solution, but it's also trading one kind of pollution for another kind of pollution. And I've said to, I think, every one of you, I think that our cities should be organized around elementary schools and grocery stores, and if you can't walk to them, they're too far apart. And I have lived in an era where that's pretty much the way the city was organized. So most of these things have been solved. Unrelated, but part of this plan is I have some concerns about turning right on red. I have had a couple of really close calls. Maybe somebody less athletic and not quite as well strong, I guess that's the same thing as I am. It could have been a disaster. There's people who will just, there's a bike lane right here, and they will decide, oh, there's a parking spot over there. And that's in both times, and it's been on Douglas both times. So I'm just bringing that up. Also, I know I've had discussions with the city guy. When you drive down these streets, especially in the wintertime, and debris falls off of the vehicles, it pushes everything into the bike lane. So as those little rocks roll, they get rounder and rounder and rounder. And sometimes they are like ball bearings. I've had a crash the same spot 2 years in a row with me and my grandson because of it's not what they put on the road. Well, I'm not sure what it is, but
The bike lanes need to be cleaned more often on certain places. I know it's Broadway, and sometimes I have to ride out in the where the cars are, which I remind people that I'm as entitled to that road as that car is. So it's not just for them. So I've done bike across Kansas many times, and we were told, if in doubt, take the lane. Don't see if they're a good enough driver to not hit you. Take the lane. So I encourage you to start with this plan, and a plan is just a plan, and I'm sure in a few years things will come up and we'll adjust. But we need to get people out of their automobiles. When we make it convenient, and I'm just making this up, to live in Mays and work at Boeing, that's the worst thing we could possibly do. So, but that's what we've done for 100 years. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We'll continue with public comment. I see none. I'll bring it back to the bench. Council Member Hoheisel.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I am supportive of this. I do have some concerns, like some of the speakers had indicated, about safety issues, physical barriers. I am hoping that we focus more on that going forward, especially in some of the higher traffic areas. Not all grants come from the government. There's a lot of private grants out there as well, and many of those also require some sort of plan in order to access them. Also, this does not tie us to any of these actions, to the funding issues that we have, but I would like to ask staff if they could make sure to give us a heads up when any of the CIP funding is being included in this. I know it does often come on the green sheets and within the plans, but maybe just an added indication that this is when any of the CIP funding would be on the docket coming up. And the last thing, Vincent, Paperboy. I was a Paperboy fan with the video games back in the day. I'm not sure that exactly teaches us the proper etiquette with biking around towns, but yeah, never did the Frogger, so just wanted to note that.
Vice Mayor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. I will also be supporting this. My wife and I were first married in 1982. We had one old car. We lived in Twin Lakes. I biked about 7 or 8 miles to Johnston's in southeast Wichita. So I did that during the summer. I figured I probably couldn't do it in the winter, so we got a small apartment closer to the store 6 months later. But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Except for one time I got 2 flat tires in a row trying to get there. So my wife finally had to take me to work that day. Later on in my career at Johnston's, when I moved the store to 21st and K96, I biked from West Wichita to work pretty consistently. I'd stop and take a shower at the North Y, bike 2 more miles into work. I had my clothes in my backpack and I loved it again. So I'm very supportive of it. I know there's a need for it for certain people that can't afford cars, and it's just a great activity. And I will say that biking on sidewalks at a fairly good speed, I usually, back then I'd go 19, 20 miles an hour. It's very, very dangerous. You have cars pulling out of streets, out of driveways, and it's really easy to get hit. They're a lot safer in the street. So I'd be very supportive of it. Thank you.
I told you he talks about his wife all the time.
Councilmember Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I want to thank Bike Walk Wichita. I think you do incredible work in the community. I'm glad to go tour your facility, I guess, recently. And I actually got my involvement in city government back in 2013 when I was the Mayor's Youth Council appointee to the Bicycle Steering Committee who came up with the 2013 plan. And I do think there's a lot of positive things that happen as a result of that. I'm also a hobby cyclist. I'm training for a triathlon right now, and so I often use our city's bike paths. Now, I've Had a few crashes, but they're my own. It's usually me running into a bridge, not me running into anything else. And so there are some maintenance concerns that the city definitely does have to address. First, I want to talk about the things about this plan that I do think are really positive, and I want to be on the record saying that there are very positive parts of this plan. I do believe that encourages bicycling. Bike projects on an additional thing is the increase of data. I think that we need more information when it comes to ridership. I think that's very important as well. I think bike projects on a temporary basis make a lot of sense, where we can see where it works and where it doesn't work. Public education is key to this plan as well. There's some aspect where regarding maintenance, again, specifically along the river, and I'm thinking specifically south along the river. I like the Adopt a Bikeway program, the racks on buses. I have no problem with shared micromobility, improved local reporting of crash data, I think is needed as well. And then also completion of the Prairie Sunset Trail in some of the parks. And so there are some things that I think are very good from this plan that I do want on the record. Now, I do think there are a lot of challenges in this plan as well. The fiscal note of a minimum of $18 million over the course, that's an increase from what's projected in our CIP currently. While we're facing challenges over the next 3 years, I don't think that is necessarily the most responsible. I also have concerns where it requires, quote, requires private developers to do things. When it comes to putting bicycle racks, I would love private developers to also put bicycle racks, but I don't think this body should force that on any private business in Delano and small business in Delano. And I also think without data, that's irresponsible to move forward on it. So I do believe that the fiscal project or projections of this do matter, as most times when staff comes up to this bench, the justification we get to endorse a plan is, well, it was in the plan. And so because it was in the plan, we should move forward on it. And again, there are good things in this plan, but I don't want that as a justification when we're facing fiscal challenges. Again, I'll use the reasoning for that. The resolution says that the outcome is to include this in the CIP. It doesn't say just part of these, it says everything. Section 2 says that we shall do this. Page 8 says that we will do this. Chapter 5 says that we will implement these plans. Those are different than the council should look at this in light of fiscal challenges at the time. Again, I support a lot of parts of these plans, but I have concerns about these. I don't think my questions were answered, and so I won't be supportive of this plan today, though I am supportive of components of the plan.
Council Member Tuttle.
Thank you very much. I want to thank staff. Thank you, Paul, for your hard work on this and everyone in your team. Also to thank the community members. I know that, as you mentioned in one of your slides, we went to the district advisory boards, we had open houses, we coordinated with the Wichita Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. So much feedback has been part of this process. I certainly want to thank Dr. Siri for being here today. Your comments were fantastic and I appreciate it. Always want to thank Bike Walk Wichita and the other advocates for making our community more walkable and bikeable. I want people to be able to get to work. I want people to be able to go to school. I want people to get to go and be able to practice their faith. I also want to attract and retain talent in our community. And we hear consistently, not just from Wichitans, but from across the nation, that having a more robust system for people to have alternate forms of transportation, either because they want to, like Vice Mayor Johnston mentioned, or because they have to, is important. And it will help keep people here. Not many of the projects within the bike plan are just standalone projects that we're building bypass. It's going to be enhancements of when we're doing road work. I truly believe that developing a plan is helping us to establish a community vision for not just how we build infrastructure, but for transportation overall, how people traverse around our community. A plan also provides a support for implementation. And then finally, it helps us and staff and the community to prioritize improvements through a systematic approach. We have a plan, and now we know how to implement the plan. I always refer back, and people have heard me many, many times talk about I make a lot of decisions most decisions based on our mission. And our mission of the city of Wichita is to be an exceptionally well-run city. And we do that through keeping Wichita safe, providing safe alternate forms of transportation, but then also for cars. If a car and a bike have an incident, both entities are going to get injured probably. So keeping our community safe. Also, as Dr. Siri so kindly mentioned, growing our economy. Traveling 10 miles an hour through Wichita versus 40 miles an hour through Wichita means that you might stop and shop, you might stop and get a coffee, you might engage in, retail activities. So it just provides for more opportunities to grow our economy. Of course, build and maintain dependable infrastructure, and then also provide the conditions for living well. As a past public health professional, walking and biking is something near and dear to my heart, because not only does it give people an opportunity for transportation options, but it also helps provide them an opportunity to live a healthier lifestyle. So with that, I will be supportive today. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be brief. I just want to commend Vice Mayor Johnston. For those who don't know, if you're riding your bike from west to east, that's uphill, and that's hard. And you did that every day. Yeah, you just go downhill going on. I just want to commend you. I've done that one time. I'll never do it again. Going uphill, tough on the legs, so I just wanted to commend you on that one.
With that, I also will reiterate my question to staff. I believe that during these last two conversations, whether it's golf carts or bicycles, that there are some opportunities for individuals to also utilize other public assets, which are the sidewalks. And so I would still like to see the number of sidewalks that the city of Wichita has, as that is also an opportunity for individuals that use a bicycle, maybe not experienced riders, but much less experienced riders that can still utilize those sidewalks. So I also want to reiterate that I've always encouraged individuals to either walk, use a bicycle, use a motorcycle, use any other forms of transportation, including vehicles. And I'm not trying to limit anyone from those choices. But I do believe that we need to maintain what we have first and foremost. And I will continue to encourage our community to utilize different types of transportation modes. But I think it really goes down to this. We have to practice more respect of one another, whether it's a pedestrian, a bicyclist, a motorcyclist, a vehicle driver. We all have to practice more respect. I've gotten emails about people running red lights. I can only imagine the type of damage, vehicle versus vehicle, if you're at an intersection and have a crash, let alone a bicyclist and a vehicle. So I would just really encourage, as I've heard multiple times from the audience as well as this bench, this is about public safety. And I do believe that we need to continue considering public safety as our number one concern, but we have public assets and they are to be utilized by the public. That means all. And so I'm gonna continue encouraging that we do more public outreach and reminding people the ways that you can legally ride your bicycle even on sidewalks outside of the downtown core, and again, encourage people to utilize other modes of transportation as well. But I am very concerned as this bicycle master plan costs the city $460,000, and then it does not carry a financial consideration at this moment, but within the plan, it does ask for $18 million in investments that would have to come before this council again before they're approved. And I know that 18 million is also the same amount for deferred maintenance in parking garages, and that was not accounted for in our budget process last year. So it gives me great concern to vote on any matters that don't take into consideration future financial problems that we will be facing. So I will not be supportive of this, but will continue to support individuals that want to walk, bike, use their motorcycles, use their vehicles, and again, we'll be voting no on this. Council Member Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that the City of Wichita adopt a resolution endorsing the 2024 Wichita Bicycle Plan and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 5-2. Madam Clerk, please call the next item. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I would request that maybe we could have a 5-minute break just because we have 4 pretty weighty items still ahead of us. Thank you.
Take a 5-minute break. How about let's come back here at 12:20, so even a little bit longer so we can utilize facilities. continue with the council meeting. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
PUD 2024-18, zone change requests in the city from LC Limited Commercial District, Multifamily Residential District, and Multifamily Residential District to PUD Planned Unit Development number 137 to allow for mixed-use development generally located at the southeast corner of East Central Avenue and North Oliver Avenue, 4801 East Central Avenue.
Hello and good afternoon. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department here to present this item. So as you heard, the applicant is requesting to rezone the property. It's currently zoned LC Limited Commercial B Multifamily and MF 29. They'd like to rezone it to Planned Unit Development, which is custom zoning. This item is being heard today because the District Advisory Board and the Planning Commission's recommendations, both for approval, are different. In terms of the request, the applicant has indicated they are requesting the rezoning in order to allow for the redevelopment of the site into a mixed-use commercial marketplace. The recommended plan unit development text, which is attached to the staff report, identifies the proposed permitted uses, including outdoor recreation and entertainment. It also identifies recommended restrictions for alcohol and entertainment on the site. In terms of the property, as you can see here, the site is generally located at the southeast corner of Oliver and Central. Subject site is made up of approximately 19 ownership parcels, is approximately 4.5 acres in size, and as I indicated before, zoned LC, B multifamily, and MF 29. It's also developed with multiple vacant commercial and office buildings in addition to undeveloped space, as you can see on the aerial. In terms of context, properties to the north of the subject site across East Central are zoned LC and developed with a convenience store, retail space, and a restaurant. Properties to the south across 3rd Street are zoned B and TF3, two-family residential district, and are developed as Robinson Middle School. Properties to the east along North Harding Avenue are zoned B and TF3 and are developed with duplexes. Properties to the west are zoned LC. Part of that includes a protective overlay. GO, general office, also with a protective overlay, and TF3. Those properties are developed with a variety of a liquor store and multiple single-family residences. In terms of the staff report provides information about the applicant's request, the recommended PUD text, including uses, limitations on hours of operations for some of the uses, signage, and landscaping. In terms of review, on November 21st, the Planning Commission held the public hearing for this case and recommended approval of the zone change. They also recommended that with modifications identified in the attached PUD language included as part of the staff report. The vote on that was 10-2. The agent was present on behalf of the applicant. The agent indicated agreement with the majority of the staff recommended changes to the PUD, but requested the MAPC allow car wash as a permitted use on the site, and that the MAPC also allow a maximum building height of 35 feet on Lot 1 and 45 feet on Lot 2. And the MAPC recommendation included those as part of their recommendation to you. 2 members of the public were at the public hearing and provided comment on the requested zone changes. While they were mostly in support, they did express some concerns with the proposed uses, namely the car wash and alcohol sales in proximity to the adjacent school. On December 2nd, so following after the MAPC meeting, the District Advisory Board heard the case and recommended approval of the zone change request similar to the MAPC, but with a modification that a car wash, the way that they're recommending it to you is that a car wash would not be permitted by right on the site. At the DAB meeting, the agent for the applicant indicated that the applicant was amenable to prohibiting car wash as an allowed use on the site, and no members of the public spoke on the item. No protest petitions were received for this case. Therefore, the zone change request can be approved with a simple majority vote, so 4 of 7. And the recommendation, it is recommended the City Council adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and approve the requested zone change. That would require 4 of 7 votes. Alternatives include the following. You can override the Planning Commission, adopt alternative findings, and deny the zone change request. That would require 5 of 7 votes. You can override the Planning Commission, adopt alternative findings, and approve the zone change request with the DAB recommended PUD text, which would prohibit a car wash as an allowed use on the site. That would require 5 of 7 votes. Or, as always, you can send it back to the Planning Commission for additional consideration, which again requires 4 of 7 votes. Just a quick note about process. The public hearing for planning items occurs at the Planning Commission meeting. According to the policy, City Council does not typically receive public comments on zoning items. So with that, I'll take you through some of the graphics and images here. So here's the aerial showing the subject site. Here's the zoning map showing the zoning in the area. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing it's recommended for residential and commercial. Here's the PUD graphic submitted as part of the application. And here is the map showing the notification area and the protest area. Again, no protests were received on this application. Here are photos from the area. There are buildings on the subject site. Looking across the street and across to the east. Looking to the west. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? I'll ask a couple questions. I was just curious. So I know that alcohol sales was of concern initially, but I just saw a picture of, I believe one of the slides showed alcohol sales. Was I correct?
That's correct. There's a liquor store across the street to the west.
And do you know what the intent is of these developers? I know that multifamily is allowed on that property. Is multifamily the intention?
Well, the way that they've described it is as a marketplace, and they would like to have the ability to serve alcohol, but also have outdoor entertainment, such as yard games and those kind of things. So I don't think that there's definitive plans, but we got a sense from the text that they submitted with the PUD of what they would like to see happen. And it talks about this planned unit development is intended to allow for redevelopment of 6 commercial buildings into a mixed-use commercial marketplace. And this is the text out of the PUD that the applicant submitted. The project aligns with the City of Wichita's focus on increased walkability and utilizing the expanded public transit along Central and Oliver. A portion of the PUD will be utilized as an outdoor area to enjoy games, entertainment, and goods available in the market and dining area of the PUD. The PUD also provides flexible development regulations to accomplish the above goals that otherwise would not be possible per a limited commercial zoning district as defined in the zoning code.
Thank you. So no intention for housing?
At this point, they don't describe it, but they would have that option available in the future if they chose to under this zoning.
Thank you. I see no further questions for staff, and these zoning cases do not receive public comment at a council meeting. So this resides in Council Member Johnson's district.
Thank you, Mayor. District 1's up first today. I have had ex parte communication with the applicant. In that conversation, as Scott also mentioned, they were okay with not having car wash as a permitted use. So with that, I would move that the City Council override the MAPC and approve the requested PUD as recommended by the District Advisory Board. For clarification, the DAB recommended PUD text is the same as the Planning Commission's, except that it does not include car wash as a permitted use. And in support of this motion, I offer the following findings. The modified PUD will help to restrict uses that could have more significant detrimental effects to the surrounding properties. And the modified PUD will also help to better balance the relative impacts and benefits to both the public and the applicant.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Conditional 2024-242, conditional use to allow daycare generally on property zoned single-family residential district to allow up to 100 children, generally located on the north side of 15th Street North between North Pershing Avenue and North Oliver Avenue at 4640 East 15th Street North.
Good afternoon again, Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So in this case, as you heard, the applicant's requesting a conditional use, And that conditional use is to allow them to operate a daycare general at this facility. Daycare general means typically that it can accommodate 12 or more individuals, but they could also do fewer than 12, but it just allows them to go beyond that 12 limit. This case is being heard because the District Advisory Board and the Planning Commission, they both recommended approval, but their conditions that they're recommending to you are slightly different. In terms of the subject site, it consists of the south portion of a former school property at the northeast corner of Pershing and 15th Street. You can see it here on the graphic. It consists of one ownership parcel. It's developed with a vacant school and related outbuildings and facilities, and is currently zoned SF5, so single-family zoning. In terms of the request, the applicant has indicated they would like to operate a daycare at the site. Again, the conditional use would allow daycare general, which would allow for more than 12 individuals to be cared for at the site. In terms of context, property to the north is zoned SF5, owned by the applicant and undeveloped. Properties to the south, east, and west are zoned SF5 and developed with single-family residences. In terms of the staff report contains information on the daycare use in the zoning code and also parking. In terms of review, on December 12th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for this item and recommended approval of the application with the conditions listed in the staff report, which are standard conditions. No members of the public spoke on this item. Prior to that, though, on December 2nd, the District Advisory Board reviewed the request and recommended approval with the same conditions as the Planning Commission, but they added a fifth one, and that was that uses on the site would be limited to school and daycare. 3 members of the public spoke on the requested conditional use with concerns related to parking, traffic, and that the applicant may not follow through with the daycare business. Now, a quick note on this one is that in preparations for this and following the DAB meeting, staff have had a number of different conversations related to that recommendation, and it's the general consensus that it's not, that with the DAB recommendation, that would be difficult, that could be a difficult one to impose, and the reason why is because the condition that they are suggesting or recommending to you would actually prohibit uses that are already allowed in the base zoning. So that could be difficult, if it was challenged, it could be difficult to defend. In terms of no protest petitions were received against the conditional use request, therefore the request may be approved with a simple majority vote or 4 of 7 votes. In terms of recommended action, it is recommended the City Council adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and approve the requested conditional use, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish a resolution after approval that requires a simple majority or 4 of 7 votes. Alternatives include the following. You can override the Planning Commission, adopt alternative findings, and deny the conditional use request. That would require 5 of 7 votes, or as always, you can return the case to the Planning Commission for additional consideration, which would require just 4 of 7 votes. Also, a quick note on the process, again, that the public hearing occurred at the Planning Commission meeting. Here's the graphic showing the site. Here's the zoning in the area, as was noted, surrounded by SF5. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing it identified and recommended for commercial use. Here's the text. Here's a graphic that was submitted as part of the application showing the school buildings. Here's the protest map, notification map. Again, no protests were received against the application. And here are photos of the site and the surrounding area. Here's the homes across the way. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? I only have one. I saw that there's a large property just north of this proposed property.
Yes.
Is that a park? Can you tell us a little bit more about that land?
No, it's a portion of the former school site, and it is not included as part of this application, but it is under the same ownership.
The applicant owns that property?
That's correct.
And what is the intention for that?
At this time, we do not know. They've not submitted anything on that one at this time.
Thank you. I see no further questions for staff. This resides in Council Member Johnson's district.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, just some clarifications before I make a motion. This is, the base zoning here is SF5, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And they are able to build one single-family dwelling on that property if they wanted to, or use the current building as a single-family dwelling?
That's correct. They could.
Okay. There was a lot of discussion at DAB for reasons I won't say from the bench, but it was a lively discussion. A lot of the concerns came from that as well, but a lot of it was based on what could be developed on that property and how that property could be used. So with that and hearing the challenges we would have legally with the recommendation, the base zoning is SF5, which is not something the community has been against. They've been supportive of SF5. And this conditional use is only for the daycare anyway, so that's the condition being attached. So with that, without going the DAB route, we can achieve the same objective, I believe. So I would move that the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested conditional use, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish the resolution after approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
PUD 2024-24, zone change request in the city from GC General Commercial to Planned Unit Development Number 135 to create the Empower PUD for an entertainment establishment generally located on the southwest corner of West 21st Street North and North Market Street, 2157 North Market Street.
Hello again, Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So as you heard for this case, the applicant is requesting to rezone the property from GC General Commercial to Planned Unit Development, which is custom zoning. This item is being heard today because the District Advisory Board and the Planning Commission's recommendations for approval are different. In terms of the request, the applicant has indicated they are requesting the rezoning in order to allow for redevelopment of the site as a cultural hub with dining, shopping, artistic experiences, resources for startups, live music, and cultural events. The recommended plan unit development text is an attachment to the staff report and identifies proposed permitted uses, including those permitted in the general commercial zoning district and entertainment establishment, event center, and nightclub in the city. In terms of the property, the subject site is generally located at the southwest corner of 21st Street and Market Street. It is made up of approximately 4 ownership parcels, is approximately 1.32 acres in size, and is zoned GC. It is developed with multiple vacant buildings and related parking. In terms of context, properties to the north across 21st Street are zoned GC and developed with restaurants and shopping. Properties to the south are zoned GC and developed with a triplex and duplex. Properties to the east across North Market Street are zoned GC and developed with a strip mall, which includes retail and restaurants. Properties to the west across North Park Place are zoned GC and developed with a quadplex, a single-family residence, and an auto body shop. Properties to the west across the alley are developed with a mix of residential dwellings. In terms of the staff report provides information about the campus uses and designs, the events, proposed events, parking, outdoor service, and food and drink, outdoor music, and landscaping. Again, the recommended PUD text is attached to the staff report. On December 12th, the Planning Commission held the public hearing for this item and recommended approval of the requested zone change with modifications to the staff recommended text. The MAPC recommended PUD general provisions are attached to the staff report. On December 9th, the District Advisory Board heard the case and recommended approval of the zone change request. The DAB recommended approval with the following differences compared to the MAPC recommendation. The DAB recommendation would require any parking plans to be approved by the Parking Administration, so the MAPC recommendation did not include that provision. The DAB recommendation would also require that outdoor music be discontinued at 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The Planning Commission recommendation was for that to discontinue at 10 p.m., so an hour difference, Sunday through Thursday, and midnight Friday and Saturday. So again, an hour difference between the MAPC recommendation and the DAB recommendation. In addition, the DAB did not recommend requiring a site plan that identifies the outdoor music and outdoor service of food and drink areas. The DAB members expressed concern regarding outdoor events and detrimental impacts to the surrounding residents. It says no members of the public spoke on this item. And another clarification on this, or at least drawing out some more attention to it, is that as part of the application, it was not clear to us initially as staff where the outdoor music and where the dining would be taking place. The agent for the applicant explained that at the MAPC meeting, which was after the DAB meeting. And so with that additional clarification, that's why there's that recommendation from the MAPC to require a site plan that identifies where those would happen on this larger campus. Again, no protests were received for this case. Therefore, the zone change request can be approved with a simple majority vote, which would require 4 of 7 votes. In terms of council action, it's recommended that City Council adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and approve the requested zone change. Again, requires 4 of 7 votes. Alternatives include the following. You can override the Planning Commission, adopt alternative findings, and deny the zone change request. That would require 5 of 7 votes. Or you can override the Planning Commission, adopt alternative findings, and approve the zone change request with the DAB recommended PUD text. That would require 5 of 7 votes. Or, as always, you can send it back to the Planning Commission for additional consideration. Again, 4 out of 7 votes. Again, quick note about the process and public comments being at the Planning Commission. With that, I'll take you through the graphics. So here's the aerial showing the campus. Here's the zoning of the area. You can see GC is kind of that pink-purple color there. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing commercial in this area. Here's the PUD graphic and text that was submitted as part of the application. This area is in the 21st Street corridor, so that we do have a corridor plan in this area, and it was consistent with that. This is the map showing the notification area and protest. Again, no protests were received for this against this application. Here are photos from the site and surrounding area. Looking across the street, looking to the east, south. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? I see none. This resides in Councilmember Ballard's district.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take the recommended action, adopt the findings of the MAPC, and approve the requested zone change.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Zone 2024-52, zone change request in the city from single-family residential district and TF3 two-family residential district to MF18 multifamily residential district to create a residential development generally located on the west side of North Doris Street and within 180 feet north of 2nd Street North at 317 and 321 North Doris.
Hello, Scott Wadle again from the Planning Department. So for this request, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from SF5 single family and TF3 to MF18 multifamily. This item is being heard today because the District Advisory Board and the Planning Commission recommendations are different. In terms of the request, the applicant has indicated they are requesting the zoning change in order to develop the property with 4 duplexes, so 8 dwelling units total. About the property, while the subject site is generally located to the north and west of 2nd Street and Doris Street, it is just approximately half an acre in size, consists of 2 ownership parcels, and is currently vacant. In terms of context, properties on all sides are zoned SF5 and developed with single-family dwellings. In addition, a multifamily residential use is located on property zone B multifamily, approximately 1,000 feet or about 2 blocks to the east. Additionally, there are several, or I should say multiple duplex structures within 350 feet of the subject site in all directions, and you can see that here on the zoning map. In terms of the staff report provides information about development standards, potential dwelling density, parking, landscaping, and screening. In terms of review, on December 12th, the Planning Commission reviewed the request and recommended approval of the zone change. One member of the public spoke against multifamily on the lots and stated he was fine with duplexes, and that was at the MAPC hearing. On December 9th, the District Advisory Board reviewed the request and recommended approval of the zone change request with modified action to allow TF3 on the site, so that one of the properties is currently zoned TF3. This action recommended by the DAB would have the southern property, which is SF5, be rezoned to TF3 and would deny the request to change the zoning of both properties to MF18. No protests were received against the case. Therefore, the zone change can be approved by a simple majority vote or 4 of 7. In terms of the recommendations, recommended the City Council adopt the findings of the Planning Commission, approve the requested zone change, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the City Clerk to publish the ordinance after approval. Again, would require 4 of 7 votes. Alternatives include the following. You can override the MAPC, adopt alternative findings, and approve the zone change to TF3, to Family Residential District, as recommended by the DAB. That would require 5 of 7 votes. Another alternative is that you can override the MAPC, adopt alternative findings, and deny the zone change request. That would require 5 of 7 votes. Or, as always, you can return the case to the Planning Commission for additional consideration. That would require 4 of 7 votes. And just a quick note about the process and public comments occurring at the Planning Commission. I'll take you through some of the graphics. Here's the aerial showing the general site. Here's the zoning map. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing that residential is recommended in this area. Here's the notification and protest map. Again, no protests were received against the application. Here are photos of the site and the surrounding area. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? I see none. This resides in Councilmember Ballard's district.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to override the MAPC and approve the requested rezoning as recommended by the District Advisory Board. This would approve a zoning change to TF3 district and not the requested MF18. In support of this motion, I offer the following findings. The rezoning to TF3 will help restrict uses that could have more significant detrimental effects to the surrounding properties. The TF3 zoning will also help to better balance the relative impacts and benefits to both the public and the applicant. There has been public opposition to rezoning the properties to MF18, but public support for TF3 zoning.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Approve that pursuant to Section 204090, Mayor Wu and Councilmember Johnson's travel expenses as estimated on the Travel Authorization and Expense form to attend Local Government Day in Topeka, Kansas, January 22nd and 23rd, 2025, for the purpose of meeting with state legislators regarding community issues consistent with AR 3.1. Upon return from travel, actual expenses shall be reported to the Controller's Office.
I will abstain from it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do, but I can't push my.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I have a question for legal, if I can. I just have a question. I heard that on this one, Mayor Wu said she was going to abstain. Do we have to abstain? I'm asking a question I don't know the answer to, because I've never abstained from voting for my own travel before, so I just want to make sure when my item comes up, I do it right.
You do not have to, you may.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And there was one additional question. I believe now Vice Mayor Johnston, were you planning to go to Topeka as well?
I think it'd be better if I'd stayed away.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Approve that pursuant to Section 204090, Vice Mayor Ballard, Councilmember Tuttle, and Councilmember Hoheisel's travel expenses as estimated on the Travel Authorization and Expense form to attend Local Government Day in Topeka on January 22nd, 2025, for the purpose of meeting with state legislators regarding community issues consistent with AR 3.1. Upon return from travel, actual expenses shall be reported to the Controller's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Approve that pursuant to Section 204090, Councilmember Glasscock's travel expenses as estimated on the Travel Authorization and Expense form to attend Local Government Day in Topeka, Kansas, January 21st through 22nd, 2025, for the purpose of meeting with state legislators regarding community issues consistent with AR 3.1. Upon return from travel, all actual expenses will be reported to the Controller's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Council member appointments and comments.
You clear the screen. Is there a council member who would like to speak? Council Member Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like on the record, doesn't involve taxpayer money to travel, and I'm not being gifted to go to it, but I'll be attending the 2025 State of the State address, Governor Kelly's address in Topeka tomorrow. On Monday, January 20th, I'll also be attending the 60th presidential inauguration of Donald Trump in Washington, D.C.
Any other council members? Council Member Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I too will be attending the State of the State and to no expense of the city. And happy birthday to Mike.
Any more council members?
Should we-
Council Member Johnston.
Should we sing to Mike? That would be cruel and unusual punishment, wouldn't it?
Council Member Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the birthday wishes. It was a good day, good evening at home with the family. The older I get, the more that's cherished to me. So I appreciate everybody who did wish me a happy birthday and everybody with the positive thoughts. Not easy getting older, but we're here doing good work, and that does ease the burden a little bit of aging. Also, I will be attending the State of the State as well. No taxpayer money going to that. I will not be attending the inauguration. We'll see in another 4 years or so, but not this year.
Any other council members? Johnson or Tuttle? I see none. I will add one more. Vice Mayor Johnston.
If you don't mind. I almost forgot. Came back from Vietnam, just to let you know, I was thinking about all of you when we were over there. You all got a gift at your place. That's from me. I will let you know that it cost 150,000 dong in Vietnamese. So no small, actually it's about $6.
We need to put it, do we need to put it on our gift report?
No, it's only $6, so, and all the same price.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Johnston. I would also like to say that I will be attending the State of the State tomorrow, and with no expenses to the city, and it is not a gift. With that, I see no further comments from council members, so I will ask for the next item. Actually, no. I will move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned at 12:55 p.m. Thank you very much for tuning in.